Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. All right, brothers and Johnny. Brothers and Johnny, you there? Okay. Johnny?
Yes, I'm here.
We hear you.
My brother?
Yes, no, but we gonna make it work.
Nah, I turned it up. What about now? What about now?
That sound better. We gonna see if they hear you good online.
Okay.
So I think we should be good.
Yeah, they can hear all right too. Yeah, everybody online can hear.
Sister Irene, mic check.
Are you able to hear me? Is my sound okay?
We hear you.
Okay.
You live on your channel, officers?
Yeah, we are good.
All right. Oh, thank you very much.
This meeting is being recorded.
What's more loud than oh, peace.
So they can hear us. All right, so everybody that's watching on my page, y'all do me a favor. Share this video so we can get some folks in here. And y'all bear with us. We get everything together. We're going to start in a minute. Y'all have a little patience for me, all right?
Oh, you can record this audio right now.
They said they can hear us on this side here. People in my chat saying they can't hear. I guess the people on the
Try check that one more time. Alright, we're gonna switch it up from there. Let's see how you turn this on.
Somebody said they can hear everyone. Okay, so maybe it's their phone. Okay, if one person can hear it, then that's not on. So maybe they need to replay.
Last mic check real quick. I'm gonna talk real quick.
If they're like, oh, we feel now.
As everyone is coming in the room on my channel, can you also like and share the video?
It's a crown, not a head there, y'all. Hey, everybody.
Hold us, hold us.
Hold on, please, to the crowd. Meet up with everybody.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Try to give me every time I go to Brooklyn. I'm supposed to play some cute butter.
Yeah.
Why we playing Usher when cute butter got here?
Bars at.
We're just getting started, you guys.
Online? Who, us? Who you asking?
Get it together.
Please. I check 1, 2.
Who with them? Peace.
The energy set right.
Getting black children. So that's what we're going to be discussing on this panel today.
Everybody's all come.
Hey y'all, Q got on a suit today. I need you to come show everybody on the camera.
Floss in the suit.
100,000 people watching between all these platforms.
Yes.
I'm not going to be running my mouth on this live today. We're going to talk. We got a panel.
Mama. Mic check 1, 2. Here we go. Sujata.
Peace, brother. I'm here.
This is Irene.
I'm here.
All right.
Yeah, we can hear her loud and clear.
Let's do everything.
Somebody said what color? He don't got on a tie, y'all. He got on a suit though, and his grill. No tie, the grill replaced the tie. I'm down with it though. It's all right.
You're doing it. You know what I'm saying?
He put on the glasses. He was smart and stuff today. You're not even in the picture. Why I don't see you?
Can't see me?
No. You can see all of us, but not you. It stopped right after him.
Use the
But we got all of this space over here. We don't need all of this room over here. We see you. Don't go away.
No, y'all can scoot down, so you can scoot down.
If they just turn the camera a little bit, it's right there where he at. Yeah. We have everything but you. Yeah, a little bit more. Yeah, your seat is in there now.
Other side.
No, your seat there. You're not in the seat yet though, because I guess it's delayed. But that's your seat. I think we delayed.
The only thing I'll say is that when I do the speaker view, when you guys speak, the blank screen's gonna come up, but not you guys. That's the only thing I'm gonna say. So I either have to keep the whole panel up, or I can't do the speaker view so it blows up big when somebody speaks, you know?
Take it back the other way a little bit, because now we don't see him.
Because your mic is off the camera, that's not on. When you talk, it knocks you guys off and brings up that blank.
Okay, boom. Now we see everybody. Wherever the camera is now is good. You can see everybody. Your seat empty, but we got your seat cute.
So how about now?
Yeah, it's good.
How about now? I mean, is it still doing it?
Say something.
You look nice in your suit. You look nice in your suit.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I won't do the speaker view. Because I think your mic is off the camera that's turned off. So I'll figure it out. Don't worry about it.
Let me turn this. I can't turn the mic on.
That's it. Don't worry about it. I'll sort it out.
That's the protector. Alright, so I think we good to go?
Shout out to the moderators. They putting the link in there. People on the road, they kids right here.
Irene, we good? Everybody's cool? Brother Baba?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So I'll take, responsibility for the, lateness. There's a lot going on today. We had our first graduation from the Institute, and we have all these families coming together from all over the place. And everybody's hungry and kind of people tired. It's been a long 3 days. But we're here, we made it happen, and we wanted to try to use this as a catalyst to connect with as many people as possible. We have a lot of children on the corner, so they want to go and have fun, but they already ran into a light pole. And they've been running around all day. They've been running around all day and ran into a light pole and started bleeding, so they got to hold up seats now. But the purpose of today is to provide you, the audience, with as many means as possible to educate your children, your youth, anyone in your community. Some of you may be fit for homeschooling. Some of you may not be able to homeschool. Some of you may need supplemental education. And so some of the people I have involved, us in the panel, they all introduce themselves. But specifically, Brother Sujata, he and I began this journey in college together, I don't know how many years ago, 22 years ago. And very integral person in my development. I want to get that up. And I guess I go from here to introducing going from last Brother Buddha Twins, 28 AP ELA teacher in Colorado, LA. Sister Robbins. Sister Robbins. That's all for whatever I can. Sister Michi X. Brother Bluefield. Sister Irene. We're supposed to be Marcus Klein as well. I'm going to text him and see where he's at. But Brother Baba Amin, the legend himself. So we just talk Brother Buddha. Everybody got 3, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Just introduce yourself. Let everybody know what you're about. Oh, Q Butter, Brother Q. My bad. Hey,
He's the guy with the suit on today. You forgot his title. He was too suave to be cute right now.
Got the suit on today. And this is sometimes these events, get organized kind of weird. And I've always been wanting to do free events since we do we do a lot of free stuff with the community. And it's always a challenge that people say people don't like free stuff. And I think that it's just a matter of promoting it better and providing better platforms. So today, we said we're going to try to do this on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and in person. That way, versus just doing it in one spot, we're reaching maybe, even if it's 1,000 people right now. That's an immense amount of people that you're going to get information that's pertinent to Black children, changing the lives of Black children all over the country, possibly all over the world. So everybody wants that. I say. So, Brother Buddha Clink, you want to introduce yourself?
Good day, everybody. My name is Mr. Robbins, a.k.a. Buddha Clinks. I taught in the public schools in Los Angeles, California for 16 years. I taught AP Literature for 13 of those 16 years. When I retired I retired. I didn't quit. I just retired. I retired from the public school system, and I sought to bring the skills and the accolades that I had accumulated in that environment directly to the people via YouTube. And in 2016, I was living in Florida, and I saw Q Butter had started an online school. So I immediately reached out to him. And in 2017, I joined the ZIAX program to offer my skills and services to the community. And that's what I'm here to do. I continue doing.
Oh, my turn. I gotta introduce myself like people don't know me. I'm the founder of the Black Agenda Movement, and in that we believe in bringing solutions. And this is a solution, right? We can talk all day about the school to prison pipeline, which we'll talk about a little bit tonight, to understand how to recognize it for your children. And we can talk all day about the issues, but I feel like it's really mundane if we don't bring solutions. So for me, I have actually been reaching out to Q for years. Q will tell you, I've been in his inbox since years ago, hey bro, we gotta get together. And I wouldn't let it go. and eventually it came together. So we work together. We present Ziax as a solution, right? When we talk about how we need to get our kids out of the public schools. So that is how I have come to be about and how I work with Ziax and why I'm here today. I'm a really big advocate for our children get out of the public schools. I have a son myself who has been caught up in the school to prison pipeline. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit more later and how you can recognize what it looks like in your own child's life, right, before it takes full effect. So this is something that's very passionate for me, because if we don't save our children, then there is no future for us, right? That's our future. And so we have to educate our children. And I just appreciate Ziax because the environment is so different in the way that when the children come in, they're learning to be prideful of who they are, right? When they pledge allegiance, it's a black power, and learning that, there's power in them and they can grow up to be the next great leaders and those that are leading the way. As we say, that black girl and black boy magic. So, so this is why I'm here, and this is why I support Ziax with everything that I have. So.
My name is Blue Pill. I have been in media since 2000. I started in newspaper journalism, and then it switched to online journalism once the internet kicked in. I've done photojournalism, videographer journalism, blogging, every single thing, that we can exhaust. Did the radio, did the TV, did the YouTube. And we've always utilized our platforms for alternative means for education. I was a benefactor of being able to, my father's a professor, a college professor. So, I would do the public school thing and then come home and then get the after school education from my father and his friends and his network of friends and my mother and Savy and everybody, as a village, we were all allowed to weigh out what we was taught in school and then, the other education that really matters. So definitely same story when I found out about what Q-Butter was doing, and not only what he was doing, but the fact that he was doing it in the realm of STEM, right? That is what made it so significant, that he was teaching children engineering and all of the viable trades and skills that we would need for our children to compete for what.
We lost sound. There's no sound. You guys give us just a second. We're just going to get the sound worked out for the people that are in person in Atlanta. So please be patient. Okay, so you guys, I was saying to give us a second because the sound over in Atlanta is bad. We have panelists that are in person in Atlanta, and we have panelists that are virtual, like myself. So just give us a second while we get it together, because we want to make sure we can hear Blue Pill and Michi and Brother Q. We want to make sure we can hear everybody. So please be patient. I know this is not the most exciting live, but sometimes the things that are essential are not exciting. And maybe we can be excited about educating our children, which is essentially what this panel is about.
One, can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Sorry, we didn't hear anything you said.
You didn't hear anything I said?
Oh.
You can't hear me now?
I saw you talking before.
Oh, yeah, I muted myself before because I was telling the people that are on my channel that we had a sound issue, but I didn't want you guys to have to listen to that.
How about now? Can y'all hear us?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hear us, we good.
We can hear you.
And we can hear them.
Can y'all hear still?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Making everybody sit. All right, first.
Yep.
Cool. My bad. All right. Blame it on cue. That's all my.
All right, take two. You said.
Yeah. So, I have been full support of Xanax because of what they represent in regards to STEM, right? The science, the technology, the engineering, and the mathematics. This is a continuation of what Garvey brought, right? So when I look at Q Butter, I look at him holding up, that prestigious area in education that the children are going to be prepared for the future, not only to compete in terms of being accessible for a hiring pool, but inventors and creators. So I'm looking at our future, and we have to do any and everything that we can to make sure that we secure that for the future.
Because difficulties happen, all right? We have to go to blue screen and green screen. Let me go to Baba Amin. Brother Amin.
Yes, sir.
Please.
Peace and black power to everybody tonight. Giving honor to the Creator, giving honor to the ancestors. It's truly a blessing to be here. Powerful to be amongst such esteemed panelists. I'd like to give the greetings to everyone participating tonight and everyone listening and watching. My name is Baba Amin Ojuwo. I am the co-founder, along with my beautiful wife and Koyo Ojuwo, of the Uhuru Academy now and Uhuru Academy Education Solutions. I'm also very recently elected Minister of Education for the Provisional Government of the Republic of New Africa. Very proud of that designation as well. And it's an honor to be here. I've been an African-centered educator for almost 30 years, beginning in the very early 90s in Butler Housing in Fort Worth, Texas, where I'm from, doing rites of passage programs, and then from there doing independent hip-hop activist programs working in various alternative schools. In 2010, we founded the Uhuru Academy, which is Fort Worth's first private African-centered school. We just finished our 10th year with the Uhuru Academy. Since our founding, we've been blessed to branch out and help start programs in other cities as well, including the Prince of Legends Academy in Houston, Texas, and the Uhuru Academy SC International in Columbia, South Carolina, and consulted with others. And our mission is to bring African-centered education, making it accessible to young people and families all over the globe. And we're willing to collaborate. We believe in collaborations and building bridges. And I want to give a special shout out, to Ziax Institute for all the work that you all are doing as well in the area of STEM. And just, again, building another bridge, another avenue, another option for families out here who are looking for a powerful education, not an alternative education option, but a primary and a powerful education option for our children. So it's an honor to be here tonight, and hopefully we can impart some information to parents that'll help make options, make things more accessible, and help others think outside of the box and realize the power that you really have, that we have as a community to guide the education of our children, and so be it via STEM, be it via health, a focus on health and wellness, which all of it really falls under science, technology, engineering, and math. When you look at it, it's really time to get out here and be bold and establish our institutions for our people. And of course, we stand on the shoulders of many who came before us in the African-centered education movement as well, and we're thankful for them. For those efforts as well. So it's an honor to be here, y'all. And that's Baba Amin. I'm here. Let's get it.
Listen, Jana.
Peace, everyone. How are you? My name is Sanjana Sekou. I'm a teacher in the public school system. I'm a teacher in Irvington, New Jersey. I teach third grade, and I teach math and science. And I recently wrote an article for my union, NJEA, about why we need more black men in the classroom. And that article was picked up by the National Education Association, why we need more black men in the classroom. So I am happy to be here. And before I go on, I have to give my black roses to my great brother, Q Butter, and his queen, Marsha, and his children. You know, as the brother said, I've known the brother maybe 21 years. We met right before 9/11. It was that long ago. We went to school in Lower Manhattan, and ever since I met that brother, he has just a positive energy. He had a great love for black people, and he's been on the front line before it was trending, before it was popular, before people was tweeting it. My brother was out here doing this work, and I'm so proud of him. I love him, I love his family, and I love his movement, and I love all of y'all for supporting my brother, and thank you for having me here today. Please.
Hi, my name is Irene Yvette.
fundamental elements that we as humans have, and being able to use it in an exemplary fashion not only highlights our intellectual capacity, it highlights our internal structure and the capacity of our community. And if we can't structurally develop and organize, we're pretty much, finished. And I think today, as many kings have during the graduation, we said, we don't look at no kings. We made it happen. We just make it better. That's kind of what we said on the tour. I said, look,
I've learned if you wait for everything to be perfect, it might not ever happen. That's how the Black agenda happened. We just did it, and we figured it out as things came to us. And I suggest more people do that.
Exactly. Just make it work, figure it out.
Work with what you got. The rest will find you when you get there. Take that first step.
There's magic in the momentum, right? There's magic in the momentum. When you move, that's when things start formulating and taking their place. When you sit still and you try to think your way through and strike out when it's perfect, you're never going to get it done. Because your analytical mind is always going to look for something else that's not perfect.
So I think what I wanted to do is give everybody, because everybody has like a specific set of topics that they all kind of like, cater towards or focus on. So I was going to give everybody either 5-10 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever they need, to just elaborate on why they focus on that specific topic.
Children with special needs, homeschooling, supplemental education, understanding the curriculum, whatever specific topic that relates to you or what you want to highlight today, we can talk about. Anybody would like to go first? Just keep going back and forth.
You saying just start with the topic?
Yeah, you start introduce your topic and why it's relevant and go in.
Well, I'm speaking on two things, but I think I want to start off with the school to prison pipeline, right? So I just want to break down what the school to prison pipeline is for a lot of people. Some of you may know, some people may not know. But basically, the school to prison pipeline is a way to shuffle our children, specifically Black kids. Statistics will show you that Black children are suspended way more, they're kicked out of school way more for the same exact stuff when it comes to the non-Black counterparts that are in their school, right? And what happens if you guys have not paid attention, all public schools now, their disciplinary action is contracted to the courts. So I don't know, you have your kids here, but maybe there are people watching online. If your child has ever gotten in trouble, you will find it is weird today. They will not send you a suspension letter or a, stay after school for detention. They'll actually write your child a ticket. That's what that correction officer that we call what's the officer in the school? The safety, the health officer, whatever. He's a corrections officer, okay? And he's in the school, and he writes these tickets, and then your child ends up in court, right? So what happens is, as the school begins to push your Black children out, and it is a science to pushing them out, right? When a kid feels that they are not appreciated, that they can never do anything right, when they're constantly in the office, so therefore they're trying to keep up with the work, and you sit them in the office for 2 hours just to tell them, don't do that and go back to class. Now you got 2 more classes you got to make up for it. You've missed all the work. You begin to fall behind. Your input is not necessary. We watch Black children time and time again raise their hand and correct these teachers and tell the colonizer, look, that's not correct. You're teaching us history wrong. That's not true. They in school giving them projects and having them pick cotton. You know what I'm saying? To see what it's like. So these are the things going on. And then when the children speak up, they're taught to be quiet. When your child feels they don't have a voice, they're not being encouraged and seeing how intelligent they can be, all that becomes squandered and they don't feel that they amount to much. And school is a very horrific place. A lot of you may say, my kids enjoy school. Most of you ask your children in a public school and they will tell you that they don't like going to school. It's not a place they want to be, right? And they go to school every day, and then you find your children skipping school. You're at work. This is how the process works. They're out there in the streets. They hope your children will get caught up in some type of a criminal activity. When that criminal activity does take place because your kids have been pushed out to the streets, they don't do it. That's how this government, that's how everything works. They don't say to your face, go away. They just give you all of the things that put your child in a position they know how children react that will push them to the streets. So now your son doesn't want to go to school. He's skipping because school is a horrific place to be. He's behind on all his work. He used to be a straight A student. Now he's failing because he's always in the office. If he breathes too hard, nobody hears him when he says he's having an issue with the teacher or anybody else. We don't hear our children because we're working so much. We don't even stop to help them deal with these things. So now I'm not going to school. I'm just going to skip today and hang out with all the other kids in the hood. They steal a car. They do whatever. This is what happens, right? When these things happen, then they take your child in the courtroom and they try your child as an adult. And let me tell you how they do that. They use your child's school record because they are tickets now. Your child has been in my courtroom several times, right? Your child has a ticket for this. Your child has a ticket for that. This is now a criminal issue. And all of your children's tickets, they got to go to court, right? Now turns into you have a prior record. This is why we should try your child as an adult, because look at all the stuff they didn't do in the public school. Being in a situation is not going to help them. They need to go off to adult prison. And then this is where they lock your children in, because you have to understand psychologically that when your child is in his teenage years, they are learning how to socialize, how to date, how to get their first job. It is a very crucial time in their development of becoming a young adult and learning how society works as being a young adult. It is the most vulnerable time of their lives where they are molded and malleable to what they can become. If you stick a child in an adult prison environment, you have created a lifelong slave. When your child gets out and they've come out after 11 years, 10 years, nobody's died, your child gets out, they've never experienced any of those things. They have been socialized into a prison society, which is much different than regular society. So when your child comes out, they got a record for robbery, car theft, but they've never even had their first job. Do you think somebody's going to hire your child? Right? They haven't learned any of these things, and so they have a prison mentality now. And so they're going to turn around and get caught up in the system. We know how that game play, keeping you on paper for so long, so your child just keeps coming back. Now, the school to prison pipeline understand the reason they want to feed our children to the prisons is because it is legal slavery. The Constitution says that slavery is legal for punishment of crime. So if we can make you a criminal, you can do free work. A lot of these prisons have whole assembly lines inside of them, and they are working for free. These inmates get done building all kinds of things, from police shields to the police gear, to it used to be Victoria's Secret drawers, to the furniture you buy, car parts, Walmart, Starbucks, all of that stuff. Absolutely. See?
They would get town contracts, municipal contracts, and then they would have us go clear land, build out parks, and all kinds.
Absolutely. So that is that not the plantation? Like, wasn't the thing of slavery is that all of that free labor allowed them to capitalize? So understand that prison is getting $1 million contracts to produce all of these products, and they won't even give these inmates enough that they're not indigent when their commissary list comes around. And for those that haven't experienced that, a commissary list is how you order your little ramen noodles, your soap, and your toothbrush to wash your behind in prison. Well, they don't even have enough money. Indigent means you have nothing to buy anything with, so we just gonna give you a little bar of soap, we're gonna give you one roll of toilet paper, we're gonna give you a little tube of toothpaste if they give you that, and this is what they're going to give you to last you for the week. Now, you have worked a full 40-hour job building these $1 million contracts for them with these products, and they're keeping every dollar while they send you back to your cell and give you nothing, right? That is legal slavery today. And again, they have just found a way to shuffle our children from the schools and lead them into the prisons. Now, I would also like to take this time to talk about what the school to prison pipeline looks like in your child's life, right? So if there's anybody out there watching and you want to know what this begins to look like, I just want to break it down for you so that you can see it as it's taking place, right? Have y'all ever noticed how in all of the public schools for our kids in the inner cities, they walk through metal detectors? Right? They've been doing this since forever. You go to white schools, where are the metal detectors? Our schools don't have mass shootings, okay? Why are there metal detectors in ours, but there's not when you go to the suburban schools? How many of you have walked into a public school and gone into the bathroom and noticed that there were metal mirrors on the wall, the same ones that are in a police cell? They don't give inner city kids in a lot of these schools real mirrors to even look at themselves in, right? So you have on a uniform. How many of you thought uniforms was a great idea? This is a psychological game. They are preparing your child for where they are getting ready to go, okay? Your children wear uniforms. Everybody says, well, that's great so kids won't be bullied. They won't talk about kids' clothes. That is a lie. Your kids can go to school and still get bullied for the shoes they have on. They can have on the flyer shoes and they still getting bullied. That's school culture, okay? Understand that when the kids put on the uniform, what it does is it takes away their identity. It's the reason when you walk into a prison, first thing they do is they take off that clothes, put on this uniform, you all look alike. You are no longer Mr. Johnson, you are inmate 127694. Go and talk to your child's school, and your child has what? A student ID number, okay? So now your child has a student ID number. They have on a uniform that's not their personality. When children are going up psychologically, that is the time where they express themselves through the way they dress, and it's a lot going on there that is a very vulnerable time for children, that they should be able to grow into who they are, what their style is, and all these different things. Schools don't allow our children in the inner city to do that. So now everybody has no personality, everybody's wearing the same thing, everybody will walk in a line, you will be quiet, you do not step outside of the rules. If you do, we are sending you down the hall where the corrections officer is going to come remove you from the class and escort you to the warden or principal's office, okay? So this is the prison environment that they put your children in, okay? It is very, if you look at it, it's very matched to the prison industry, right? This is exactly. Thank you. Yes. Let me tell you something. Have you ever seen the white kids' schools though? Go into the cafeteria of a white kid's school. There are literally straight up McDonald's and Taco Bells in their cafeteria. There are couches to sit and be bougie. There are tables out on the grass where you can sit and have your lunch. So trust me, that is by design. You're very right. The building even looks that way. How many times have you seen them send our children into what they call a detention room and there's no windows in there? It's the same effect when you walk into a cell. You've never been in a cell. Yeah, they will put them in a basement in a place that have no windows. That's for a reason, right? So psychologically, you're setting the children up to get comfortable of where they're getting ready to hopefully send your children anyway, and they create the environment. Understand that all of us are a product of our environment. And if you understand human nature, which the enemy does, that if you just place our children in the right environment, they are going to automatically react the way you want them to. They know this. So when they take all of that away, they're subconsciously getting your kids ready for where they're going to go. They do all of these things knowing the children will feel hopeless. They won't like school. They keep the parents busy. We are not the parents anymore, right? Child Protective Services is the disciplinary. School are the parents. They teach your kids what to believe. All of the kids that are around, they're pumping all of that stuff in your children's brain, right? So understand they've taken that right away from all of the parents, and they keep you busy in survival mode so you don't have time, right? You're just trying to survive. So you don't have time to even raise your kids no more. The school system spend more time with your children than you ever do, right? And then I'm sure social media and TV gets the rest of that. Right? You very far from between, are you spending time with your children? That has a very damaging effect on them, right? And so the public school is the last place that you want to put your kid. I think that we have seen a lot online with teachers just disregarding kids. I mean, even now, the white folks is fighting everybody, talking about why are we going to teach racism in school? Wait a minute, but you're gonna teach a 5-year-old he could be a girl if he don't like being a boy? So we're not supposed to talk about black oppression. I want you to see how ridiculous that is, but nobody wants them to talk about that, right? So there's a reason behind that. Because if you begin to talk about it, you got to unwrap everything that they're really doing, okay? So these places are not conducive to your children, and anytime your child speaks out, they're going to be punished for those things. So I will tell you, and I'm saying this for real, I'm not exaggerating, your black child has a greater chance of becoming a good inmate before your child ever becomes a great citizen by leaving your children, your black children, in the public schools. And boys statistically are shown to be given much harsh treatment, but don't get it twisted. Black girls are right behind them, right?
Come on, get that up. I want to segue from where she left off, because hearing her speak, I realized that I'm a product of that. You know, before the over-criminalization of schools took place, I graduated high school in 1994, right? So prior to that, they were setting it up, right? It wasn't that overt. They didn't have all of those systems put in place, but they were getting ready for it. And high school opened my eyes to, you know, the real deal with society, the fact that we were being criminalized. I was sent to New Utrecht High School the summer after Yusef Hawkins got killed, right? Does anybody remember Yusef Hawkins? So Yusef Hawkins got killed in Bensonhurst by a group of racist teens. They all had went to New Utrecht, Italians, right? So they bust us, they sent us to New Utrecht in a very racist neighborhood in Bensonhurst with the Italians. Immediately they started socializing us to figure out, you know, who were the people who were popular, who were the people that other people would listen to, and then they started attempting to get rid of us, right? At first, the dean would befriend us through sports, you know what I mean? And then he would try to find out who was whose, and he could start clipping us off to get the leaders out of the way so they could start marginalizing all of the other students and getting them, in lock and key because they didn't want to deal with the Negro problem, right? Because the neighborhood now is putting pressure on them to say, look, we don't want those niggas in this community. You feel me? They was chasing children home with bats every single day. The mob used to come up there and, because their children went to the school and they would come up there and beat people up, beat them down with all types of stuff that was going on there. So by the time I graduated in 94, I had been sent to 4 different schools, right? Every single school I would go to, they would play the same program. Now, I was gifted. I was a very intellectual child because of my education that was taking place after school when I got home, right? But I saw how threatening it was to these educational systems or what have you, and they were attempting to separate us as much as they can. Anytime that you show any ability to contradict what they were teaching, because I was one of those students, I was asking all of the unpopular questions in class, and they would be like, look,
that's a no-no.
Yeah, that's a no-no. They would send me down to the office and figure something out, figure out a way to get me tripped up and get me up out of them schools. And then, I fell into the criminal system and I saw all of these similarities, only to come home and then it was fully put in place because I think probably the year that I left is when they brought the metal detectors in the school. That's how they started. They brought the metal detectors in and then they had to bring in school safety. Well, first they had school safety in the school, but they weren't able to directly interact and interface with their children. And then they probably had 1 or 2 incidents, violent, quote unquote, so they say, and then they got involved, right? And then these things slip. They happen very gradually, right? Which means we have to be very cognizant and very aware of what's going on because they just slipped them through. And before you know it, it's a full-fledged school-to-prison pipeline as it is today. You feel me? And this is all about labor, right? This is all about the fact that, like she said, they identify the fact that if they have free slavery, right? Because when I got to prison, they told me you don't have rights no more. You know what I'm saying? Your rights is outside. You in jail now. There's no rights here. That was a wake-up call. Nobody told me that. Nobody prepared me for that reality, And especially the way that the economy is going now, it's going to become even more intensified because they're going to have to force children. They're going to have to force labor. You know what I mean? And the only thing that can counteract these attempts to swallow our children wholesale is teaching our children at home, right? Or even if your children go to school, being able to teach them after. I think that that's what we bring to the table. I can speak for myself. The fact that we do provide information and education on different mediums such as YouTube and social network. People tell me all the time, like, yeah, my child might still go to school, but when they come home, we have them watching your videos. You know what I mean? And they'll do research based on the information that they get. That's how I benefited. Again, I went to public school, but I got, unindoctrinated when I got home, right? It was always ways for me to research and learn information or be put into situations or environments where I'm able to see, that, take me to Dr. Ben lecture, or take me to a John Clark lecture. You know what I'm saying? Like, these were things that my parents were doing to give us a counterbalance to make sure that we ask the right questions. So you have to be able to keep that open dialogue with your children at all times. You even have to interrogate them when they come home. Like, what did they teach you in school today? You feel me? And then you have to be able to gauge how detrimental that is to the development of your child. And not only in their own mental, but in your own household, right? Because I remember the way that I was being indoctrinated in school, and it was kind of making me go counter to what my father was attempting to teach me, right? They will have you totally brainwashed.
You spend more hours there, they have much greater influence than we want to give them.
They have a greater influence.
For, yeah.
And we're already being taught that you have to, trust this person. This person is responsible for your accreditation, and that's going to be responsible for me graduating and being able to get a job and provide for myself. So this person is the most important person in my life right now, even more so than my parents. Because I'm like, they're not graduating me. You feel me? They're not responsible. They're sending me to school to make sure I walk across that stage and get that piece of paper. Right? So we have to be very careful about how we indoctrinate our own children, you know, to interface with these particular institutions, you feel me, and give them the credit that they don't deserve. There's nobody, this should be part of our generation that still sends their children to school based on the traumatization, the trauma that we went through as students. We know that it didn't get no better. It got worse because we actually had them old little Jewish teachers that kind of cared. And now they don't have none of that. You know what I'm saying? So why are we continuously... They don't do that. They don't do that. Then I learned about yeshiva. Then I learned about, you know, you speak to the Jewish parents and the Asian, they teach their own children. And even if they went to public school, they're going to get that same amount of time at home, you know what I'm saying, being re-educated into their culture, right? So nobody else allows this but us. So I want to advocate for homeschooling and, you know, institutions in our community that are able to provide, you know, engaging information for our children. Because as children, we said, what? We don't learn like this. We got to be able to touch things and go into nature. You know, we want an immersive experience. So the first time that, you know, I came to the Brothers Academy, what was it, 2016, 2017? It was an immersive experience. You know what I'm saying? The little ones was learning, right? It was very engaging. It was hands-on. It was building things as babies. You feel me? So I want to see the vision where we can have one of these institutes, you know, primarily in all of the cities where our people are most dominant and populated, and ultimately, you know, globally, once they realize, you know, through the graduate program, when these children graduate, become engineers and outdo the Teslas of the world and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
You know me?
You know, can I add something I want to say while we're on that topic? Another thing I want to point out about school is you were talking about learning, right? I want people to understand that in public schools, the way they teach our children is very damaging. It actually squanders their potential in their mind. And what I mean by that, me and Marsha were talking about this earlier at the bar. Yeah, we was at the bar, y'all. We did but we were talking about how the difference between memorizing something and being smart versus intelligence, right? So being smart says, I can regurgitate back to you what the answer is. You asked me a question, I memorized what it was. Intelligence is the ability to apply the things you learn to not just the situation they gave you, but to wherever it can be applied in your life. They do not teach our children that way. They teach them, like you said, in a prison setting, you just remember this and give me back what I told you. And so kids can do that. It does not mean they have grasped the concept of it to actually apply it to their life, right? So this is why you find in places like Detroit, Chicago, some of you may be in other places that you can testify to this, but even in Detroit, there was a lawsuit against the school board a couple of years back. And that lawsuit was because they were giving children high school diplomas and they were illiterate. There are children with high school diplomas that they could not read, they could not write, they could not count. So how do you pass them all the way through these grades and they've learned nothing, right? So this is not make-believe. Like, this happens in a lot of places. And then the school board kindly came back and said that you have no case because we have no obligation to make sure your child can read. Well, what the hell is your obligation when we're talking about a school here? But this was their response. I'm not lying. Go look it up. I also want you to know that there's hundreds of public schools right now who don't have water. Is your city one of those schools where your children go? They turn off the water because the lead levels are too high. Your children in old, bug-infested buildings. They have lead inside of the schools. In Michigan, I want to say there was like 100 and some schools. They shut the water off, right? Because it had too much lead in it. Now, understand, even if the kids aren't drinking it, when you wash your hands, the lead is the biggest organ you have. Like, stuff goes through your skin. They're spending $250,000 in some places a month to bring in bottled water for the children, but you won't just fix the pipes in the school. So keep these things in mind, that when you send your kids to public school, just because it's white don't make it right. Your children are learning nothing at all, and that is their plan. If we can't send them to prison right now, we at least want them to be dumb enough that they can come back later and we can catch them up if they make it past the 12th grade without going to prison, right? So just keep that in mind. They're not even teaching your children anything, and you're just sending them there every day to allow them to babysit your children while you work 2 and 3 jobs so you can just survive and not live, right?
Can I just merge what Blue Pill and Michi were saying? There's the school to prison pipeline aspect of it. But then it's also what they do with the children that are high achieving as well, or the children who are in middle class, upper middle class, and upper class communities, where if they can't get them by making them be ignorant by lack of education, if they can't push them through the school to prison pipeline, then they brainwash them to not have race loyalty. And so what you end up with are these become our senators, these become our congressmen, these become our Black political leaders, right? These become our newscasters, and they have no race loyalty whatsoever, which brings what Blue Pill said into perspective, which is one of the most damaging things in that we see in the Institute all the time is these children have been indoctrinated to actually think that people who have race loyalty are archaic in their mindset. And they actually have a revulsion toward words like Black Power. They have a revulsion toward the idea that they might work toward building something that contributes to the community as a whole. They don't understand the concept of communal progress and multi-generational progress. This does not apply to them because they're being taught that there is no difference. And that if you try to speak and emphasize those differences, that you're part of the problem. And I think this can be very damaging because, you know, it's a threefold thing, right? If they don't take them to prison, if they cannot make them uneducated by not providing that education, then what they do is they attempt to brainwash them, which is why I have to come behind the brother and the sister when they say that at the end of the day, we need to pull our children out of these schools if possible. We need to be educating them if possible on our own. And if you're not able to do that, you know, it's dangerous because making that connection when your child comes home from work, when they're predominantly, like Michi said, they're most of their day, then that's reinforced. Then with the homework that they do, sometimes they spend hours doing homework, and then it's reinforced. There's a trickle down with the media that they're exposed to, all sending these same messages. You know, there's a saying, if you send your children to Caesar to be educated, they're going to come back children of Caesar. And I think that is what we're seeing in the Black community that we're having such a difficult time pushing back against. So, yeah, I just wanted to merge what Blue Pill and Michi said, because I think we have to look at a multifaceted thing. Mm-hmm.
We can speak and look at all the statistics because they've told on themselves every chance that they got. They tell you what time it is, right? The Jesuits say, give me a child from the age of 0 to 7, and I'm going to give you an adult. So the programming, the subconscious programming happens between the ages of 0 to 7. Whatever you put into that child, it's going to be almost impossible to reverse that because the child is going to operate only over 5% of their consciousness. Everything, you know, is going to be operating from the subconscious programming. So we're literally handing our children over to be our worst enemies, you know, the people that we ultimately going to end up out here working against. And I don't know if anybody else in the community sees it, but that's what's going on out here. We don't want to admit it. You feel me? But
I feel
out here on demon time.
Yeah. If I can jump in for a second, it's like we put ourselves in an inclusion lottery, right? It's an inclusion lottery where a few are going to trickle through into these institutions that we don't own, that we don't run, that don't work in our best interest. And in order to make it into that exclusive group, you know what I'm saying, abandoning building our own community is a part of that criteria. You have to be willing to assist or turn a blind eye to the exploitation of your community in order to really be a part of, you know, or go in, how do the integration to say, change it from the inside, change the system from the inside. But often what we see is people go into the system and the system starts to change them on the inside. Once you get in there, because it's not our system, right? And it's foolish for us to believe that we can indoctrinate ourselves to be accepted into a certain area. And then when we get into that area, all of a sudden we maintain that rebellion. We remember the cause. We're not going to do that. And the issue too is the masses, those who don't get into the inclusion system, they pull the performing arts programs, the STEM programs, the trade programs. So now you can't even build a strong foundational working class to sustain ownership inside of the community. So when you don't have ownership inside of the community, you're not cultivating ownership. You're not cultivating property owners. homeowners in the working class community, what you get is a permanent underclass. You get people that are not only falling victim to a school to prison pipeline, but you falling victim to a school to poverty pipeline, generational poverty. How many of our housing communities do we walk in across the country and you see 4 and 5 generations of one family in the same situation?
Right.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, sir.
Peace, everyone. Now, let's just call these systems what they are. Whether it's the economic system or the education system, they're all racist. They weren't built for us. We all can admit to that. We were brought here to work. We were brought here to work from sun up to sun down. We were never supposed to be educated. And these systems came out of that dynamic. Now, I'm behind the wall, in a sense. I am a teacher. I am a teacher in the public school system. And I will tell you this, and I promise you this. I teach that Black power every day, all day. I teach that math and science with that Black power every day, all day. In the morning when they're eating breakfast, I'm showing them videos about Mansa Musa. In the morning when they're eating breakfast, I'm showing them videos about Brother Malcolm. In the morning when they're eating breakfast, I'm showing them videos about Queen Harriet Tubman. I'm showing them videos about African civilization. Now, I would say I may be the minority in doing that, and we all can admit, because all of us have been traumatized in some way by the public education system, including myself. So what I'm saying is I may be the minority, but when these Black children walk into that classroom, I remind them that the Panthers were the ones who started this breakfast program. The government gave us nothing. The government didn't want us in those schools. So when they come see me, when they're with Mr. Sekou, I can tell you on my Black skin that I'm telling about their history, I'm telling about their culture, and I'm educating them on who they are as people. And I tell them every day, we need you out here. We need you to fight in this cultural war that we're constantly in.
You know, Brother Sekou, we need to build, if I can add on,
Yes, sir.
for those of you who are behind the wall, holding it down the way you are, protections have to be put in place for Black teachers who are willing and have the information and the training to do that. Now, see, I'm from Texas, you know. Like I know Brother Peel mentioned the Jewish teachers and others that might have said something. Man, we had redneck teachers. Ain't no second minority or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? When you get down south, it's either this or that, right? And so those teachers that we have on the inside that are bringing the information like what you're bringing and the love that like what you're bringing, Sekou, there has to be protections for them, right? Or alternatives for them, like a school that can match your salary and get you up out of there.
And I agree with that, my great brother. But the thing I want to say as well, the teachers who are behind the wall like myself need to stop being punks. Need to stop being scared. Need to stop allowing the Black children to not know who they are. In New Jersey, we have tenure protection. And basically, if you don't break the law, you can have a job for life. But yet, many of our teachers are still scared on speaking the truth and teaching the truth. Many of them are still scared. You know, many of them won't even mention the Haitian Revolution. Many of them won't even mention how many of our people fought back, but they will mention slavery. How many?
That's where our story begins.
When they talk about, yes, sir, when they talk about slavery, they talk about us being passive. They never talk about how many of us fought and rebelled against slavery, no matter where it was. They never talk about that. So, and like the brother said, yes, they try to preach where our story begins. I am going to tell all of you here. Let's get into curriculum and talk about some of these curriculums. Here's a book you should have in your house, whether it's homeschooled, whether it is in a public school. Here it is. This book, African American History: A Journey of Liberation by Molefi Asante, is a textbook. And our story in this book doesn't start in 1619. It doesn't start in 1492. It starts 4 million years ago. This is where it starts for us. We are the mothers and fathers of civilization. And all of you who are homeschooling, I applaud you. All of you who are public education teachers and administrators, we need to make sure books like these are in the classroom so that our students can know their real history and it won't be hidden from us. And I would say just one more thing to add on to this. Parents, I have to tell you, the parents, you have to demand the education that you want. Whether it's public, whether it's private, whether it's homeschooling, you have to make sure that the education your child is getting, it's one that will fit their Black needs. No matter where they are. Because too many times these Board of Education meetings are happening, 2-3 parents in the house. Too many times these curriculum decisions are being made and 3-4 people are there, and it's the same 4 people that was at the Board of Education meeting. So we need to, on the most part, start getting into these Board of Education meeting and saying, I want my Black children learning about Black history, not just in February. When are we going to start doing more of that? Let's go in and sit in on these meetings. Let's go in and make sure that our voices is heard and we're not just on the sideline while other people are making decisions about our children. These are our children. And I'm talking about the children who are mine, and I'm talking about the children who are yours. These are our children. And we can't continuously allow in each generation, like Brother Phil was saying, each generation be traumatized within this education system, and we're not fighting for them.
When you buy into the concept of Black inferiority, you believe that all the issues are just your fault. Like you say, go to that board meeting. Somebody's gonna say, stop blaming the white man. When you buy into your own inferiority, right? It's hard to get up and fight. It's hard to make demands. Or those who are making demands becoming a minority because you don't believe your vote is gonna count. You don't believe your voice is going to count. And you surely don't believe that you can build an institution for yourself, another choice, another alternative. So that's a part of the work here, y'all. This is an action. This is an action right here. The education of our children, this is an active agenda. You know what I'm saying? That right here. You have to get up off the couch. You got to step off, as they used to say in the streets, you got to step off the porch. You got to come up off the porch and get engaged with what's going on because we're losing in the end. You know what I'm saying? So,
I really want to put emphasis on that too, because I think a lot of times, if we're honest, school becomes a place that we send our children. For those that are publicly schooled, school becomes a place that you send your children where it's hands off while you work, right? It's basically a babysitter for you. And even we see that in Ziax, we had to work with a lot of the parents. A lot of the parents, who were used to public school weren't used to that more hands-on experience. Like, yes, we're giving them the curriculum, we're educating them, but you're a partner in this, and that's the expectation, is that we're working side by side. Not that you leave them at the computer or at the institute for us to teach them, and then you just disappear off into, the smoky background.
And I think that point was driven home last year, right? With children having to come back home and learn from home. Parents admittedly found out that they were not even qualified to teach their children because they're not able to memorize or retain the information that we were indoctrinated to memorize as students. We didn't learn that stuff. We memorized it because we couldn't do anything with it in the real world. So you're like, oh, what was this again? You have to go back to second grade with your child. And your child is looking at you. They're teaching you now, like, wait, no, you put that, you carry it over there.
They changed it though. They did that on purpose. Have you noticed that?
They did.
They changed. 2 plus 2 ain't no more. They give you 12 other steps.
Right.
But understand that's on purpose because they want to divide the parent and the child. So now it's difficult for you to help your kids with their homework because that is not the way they taught us. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So why did you mess with the way they get to the equation? it makes it more difficult now for parents to even help their child. You know what I'm saying?
So now they're able to what? Marginalize these children by saying what? Melanated children are not proficient in math, right? And English. And then they did that. They did it right here in Georgia with a little criminal case that they hit the teachers with a few years ago when they said, oh, they're just passing these students so the schools can get funding, but these children are graduating, right, without literacy or what have you. They do that everywhere.
Do that everywhere. That's the real pandemic.
Yeah, I want us to also keep in mind that these children that we're looking at are being socialized different because they're part of the digital age. So I looked at a statistic the other day that said that teenage suicide amongst young girls are up 110% post 2015, 2016, because they live in a completely digitized world, right? And now the way that, like you said, there's a culturation period that takes place in school when we're being socialized amongst one another, right? Our standards of beauty, our standards of acceptance, all of these things are being gauged by other children. Now it's being gauged against Instagram and TikTok. Now it's being done in public. Now it's being done, amongst a million, 1,000 other people who they have to look at, right? Curated idea of perfection. And I'm not good enough. I got acne. Like, they're not even allowed to go through the things that we went through. And we're subjecting them to this. To do what? To go and give all of our sweat equity to a 9 to 5 just to play the hamster wheel game that our parents played that we didn't learn from.
A non-guaranteed hamster wheel. You might not even get the wheel.
We didn't learn from the hamster wheel game that our parents learned, and we haven't learned from the education that put us in a predicament, and we putting our children in it. But we're supposed to be evolving as a species.
Can we speak to something Brother Q says often too? And Baba, you touched on this as well, and that's the application of a thing. Because when we look at something, I know when I was teaching geography and the kids were like, basically, why do we have to learn where the lakes are and the fresh water and all this? And I said, why do we have to learn where resources are? Why do you have to know where the fresh water reserves on the planet are? Why do you have to understand the waterways that we use for trade? See, that's the application. We think application like, can I use it in my day-to-day life? But when you're building institutions, like Brother Baba said, we need to know if we're going to engage in worldwide trade, what are the best trade routes? What are the waterways people are using? Who has the mineral resources? Who has, and Brother Q speaks about that all the time. It's fine to know how to build a car, but then my question is, where do you get the metals to build the car? How do you build the microchips to build that car? What are you using to build those microchips? And so when we talk about what application is, at the Institute, taking it that step further, that this is not just about base level knowledge. This is if you have to build from the ground up. If I drop you in the middle of the jungle today, not can you build a fire, but can you build a factory, right? Can you then distribute those goods? And how does that work? So I think a lot of times these subjects seem boring to our children because they're not being taught. They're not used to being taught from a perspective of, we want you to create a society that is self-sustaining. They're being taught from an aspect of, we want you to buy the car, to get the house, to acquire the money with the white man's face on it. We want you to do that. Not we want you to be able to develop monetary systems, be able to engage in global trade, be able to build those factories, be able to build the textiles that you make your clothes from. A lot of times we think, oh, I have children that want to be designers. That's a beautiful thing. But then my question is, where are you sourcing those textiles from? Who has the capacity to build the machines that create those textiles? Right? Where are the farms that you're getting those raw materials from? We want it from the dirt to your back. We want to own it all. And that is real application. And that is what we cultivate when we teach our own, that they will never teach in public school because the system is not designed to be usurped. The system is not designed to be replaced. So they will never teach replacement strategy.
That part, right? Real quick, it's for crass commercialism, like she said. They're going to train your children to be consumers. They're going to train your children to be laborers and workers. We are the only ones that can train our children to think like industrialists, right? To build industry. And that's where the mechanics of STEM comes in. I mean, think about it. They don't have art and music in schools anymore. You feel me? Where's the children that used to do the science experiments? Outside of what I saw you doing, I don't think they didn't have that in the school no more. Remember the little kids used to build the volcanoes? The science projects?
Still have that, brother.
They have it. It's watered down in a lot of areas. It's defunded in a lot of. It's de-emphasized. A lot of that's been de-emphasized, so it's just like a fragment of what it used to be. But it's still technically, kind of like Black History Month. It's a Black History Month program. Ain't nobody really excited. People acting to pretend like they know the Negro National Anthem and that sort of thing. That's kind of how they treat the science fair and all that now.
I gotta get the opposite perspective because I taught in the public schools and I was good at it. And I don't look at it the way I'm hearing people talk about it, even though I know those conditions are there, because I never looked at the public school as a place to go for them to teach me something. They had facilities that I could use to express what I wanted to know or what was inside of me. So I looked at the public school place as a place where you go to use facilities. I never went there expecting to learn nothing from them. So if I wanted to use the wood shop, they had a lathe. I didn't have no lathe at home. If I wanted to go into the auto shop, they had the equipment. They had the pneumatic wrench, and they had the lift, and they had the metric tools and the standard wrenches you needed and what you just didn't have at the house back then. I didn't have it in my house. Some people had it in the neighborhood. So I always looked at schools as facilities. So when I graduated, I was a good student. I had a 3-point-something GPA, but I hung with the bad students and the bad people. I didn't apply for a scholarship, but my teachers applied for scholarships for me, and I graduated with almost $10,000 in cash money. And the white lady did that, and the next Spanish teacher and a white teacher did that because I was a talented writer. The Photoshop teacher applied for a scholarship for me also, and I got some money from her. So the schools never did me by. So that's why when I went to choose a career, I chose to be an educator, and I literally went to college to study literature and composition and rhetoric, took a 2-year credentialing program to teach. I didn't go there to get some job and I already knew being a teacher was broke, but my family do other things for money, if you understand what I say, but my point to that. So I didn't go there for no money. I went there to provide the same opportunity to Black students and other students that I got from teachers that actually pushed me, and I wanted to be one of those Black males in the classroom like this brother here that is still out there doing the hard works in that classroom. And my whole program was progressive. I played Phil Valentine videos at lunchtime in the classroom and stuff like that. I played Bobby Hemmings. Whatever was cracking at the time, I put on Side Netta, whatever. I'd expose them to all the African history, Caribbean history, obscure history about the South, history of tap dancing, just different things, just expressing them and showing them just the whole Black experience throughout the diaspora. And I taught at an inner city school. It was a gangbanging school in Inglewood, California, Morningside High School, full of bloods. I had 2 AP classes, and then I had 2 classes full of nothing but criminals. Munchie D, big up yourself. Too Much, big up yourself. These are big-time gangsters in Los Angeles, bloods that were 4.0 students in my AP classes, because I took them from the ghetto class to the AP class. Big up Takeoff. I know you out there somewhere. I don't want to keep naming all you guys, but all you guys that came out of my class, they know that y'all are criminals, but you're very intelligent. You know why you're intelligent and who gave you that information.
Some of the best criminals are very intelligent.
No, I'm not gonna lie. They know this is what I'm trying to say, because at the school I was at, there were students that were there to learn, but there were students there that chose the prison pipeline. No, they chose this. They chose to be gangsters. They wanted to be gang members. Their parents were trying to fight them out of it, but the appeal in the streets, the social media, what gave them a sense of being a manhood was joining that clique. What I did was respect that, but push my ability to edify them through education on them and just provide them with facility to improve their understanding so they could move around the world. And then when they started catching court cases, which they did, they could actually read the case better than the attorney they had. They got themselves out of jail. And then they started seeing, wait a minute, this is valuable. When they spoke to the judge looked at, well, what are you doing, young man? Wait a minute, you have that guy, Mr. Robbins, over there. You need to come out of that program and you need to go back to school and this and that, because they could articulate themselves. So I never had an anti-public school system attitude. My thing was I was limited to the amount of black children that I was getting exposed to, because a lot of them was leaving the schools. And there's no offense to none of my Hispanic friends, because I love them. I love all my Mexicans. Y'all know that. I love my Salvadorian. I love all you people in LA. But the school started getting overpopulated with a lot of, Hispanic students. And I feel like I needed a way to go reach more of the young black males that were being marginalized. And then that's when Q Butter started this school. And I'd already retired from public school. I was going to go back. I was going to go back to Morningside. I was going to stay retired for about 2 years. But when he started his school, I decided to join, so I can have this other perspective, because there is value in the public schools facilities when you can get to one that has decent facilities where you can take advantage of them. For instance, at the school I taught at, we had a swimming pool. 50% of the children didn't want to learn to swim, especially the black students. There had to be
There's a whole
forced.
history behind that.
I know there had to be forced, but the facility was there. And then over time, when a new black swim coach came, they learned to swim. 80% of the students learned to swim now. They attended swim class. So there was facilities, is all I'm saying. In certain these institutions, if you can take over the facility. And another thing that people don't understand when you're homeschooling, your local school is still your school.
Yep, you still
All
paying
the
taxes.
facilities are available to you. The library, the field trips, the football field, the gym, the basketball team, the football team, the softball team, anything that the regular students do, you are enrolled in that school. You just happen to be at home. And your parents and other educators are your primary educators, but your state test records appear on that school's registry for testing. And the scores go to that school. They get the credit. So you're entitled to everything in that district, actually. And let's say if your local homeschool doesn't have something, any school in that district, you're entitled to use. So if your local school doesn't have a football team and your son is homeschooled, he wants to play football, he can go find the best football team at the school in that district and sign up, and they can't stop it because they're not providing it at his local school.
Mr. Robbins.
It depends on the district.
Yeah.
It depends on the district. It depends on the state. It depends on the county.
California.
In California it is like that. But I think the thing you said, Mr. Robbins, that hit home the most with me was getting children to understand, because I would always say this to my pre-college class. The education is not because your parents are making you come here. The education is not because this is something that you have to do. The education is for you. Like, it benefits you. It benefits you way more than it benefits any of us. And for that, to get that transformation in the minds, like you were talking about with your students, that education is for them, not for anybody else. And I think a lot of times children have a hard time palating that school is not something that they're being forced to do and just kind of have to suffer through, versus school is something that will make me powerful. And that old adage that knowledge is power is like a real thing. The more you know, the more you understand how people operate. I was talking to the kids about paternalism. A lot of black people, a lot of black children have had a lot of white people be kind to them. They don't understand that they've been socially conditioned, that some of the nicest people you meet are white because they view you like a pet. They view you like something that they should care for. Going back to that old poem, The White Man's Burden, a burden for them to look out for. They're kind the way that you're kind to a baby, or the way that you're kind to a sick puppy, or, a bird that falls out of the tree. And so getting them to understand that education helps them peel behind and unwhitewash their environment to see it for what it is. I think that, like you were saying, Mr. Robbins, is really a powerful thing that can only be instilled in an environment where they actually care that the children are walking away with knowledge. Because going back to what I think Michi and also blue pill were saying, you can walk out of there and actually learn nothing because they don't care that you do learn.
That's one of the reasons this Irene, I instituted the personal student growth portfolios in my courses. I started teaching in 2000, actually 1998, but in 2000, I implemented the PSG, Personal Student Growth Portfolio, for responsibility and accountability and demonstration of the growth progress. And that has served me well. It serves the students well because it actually has a record of their learning growth as you go throughout the course. So that's another thing that I would recommend as a homeschooling strategy or tip or asset is to keep a portfolio that documents your child's progress and growth and what you have taught and what he has learned and what needs to be retaught or reviewed again. So you have an actual diagnostic of his strengths and weaknesses as a learner.
I want to say something before we get too far off this topic. I've been holding this for a second. I want to say this about the school to prison pipeline. Kids do not choose the school to prison pipeline. Back when you were growing up, there's a difference. You could be a juvenile and you could commit a crime and you can go to juvenile. The school to prison pipeline sends you to prison as a grown man, even though you're a child. So that would be the difference there, right? And so I want to make that clear that they're not choosing the school to prison pipeline. I want people to know it's a lot more than just something that's obvious that they see, right? And I'm sure when you was going to school back in the day, uniforms and all those things weren't what they were today. So I just want to make that clear. I also want to say, too, that when you're talking about black and brown, we're not the same. And I have had my kids in suburban schools or gone to places where it was predominantly brown kids in there. And Mexican kids and Hispanics, they do get a better education and better facilities than most time. I want you to go to the inner cities where it's the ghetto, okay? Where 98% of the kids in the school are black, and you're not going to see the same facilities. So I just want to say in the whole, we all have different experiences, but when we're talking about this in a whole picture, that is not the case for many people. Like even where you say the schools were that you saw, that's not what you find in most inner cities that are predominantly black children. They don't have any after-school programs. They are cutting them all off. They don't have all of these sports anymore. They don't have those things for our kids when you go to the schools that are 98% black children. So I think that we need to keep that in mind too. I mean, everybody can have the experiences because I can sit here and tell you too that my kids have been in suburban schools, my kids have been in other schools, you know, we've been to inner city schools, and at the end of the day, I have had many experiences, even in those schools full of Hispanic kids with those, with those swimming pools and all of that stuff too, where my children were harassed and called niggers, and the school didn't want to do anything about it, right? Or they take his notebooks and teachers are treating them a certain way. So, I mean, everybody has their different experience, but what I want to say is as a whole, the public schools in this country are not in favor of helping your children. And there are children that do want educations, but their schools just do not provide them. Again, you got schools with swimming pools and swimming teachers. I'm talking about the schools that don't even have any running water. And they have bottled water being shipped in every month because there's too much lead in their pipes. So I just think that I don't want to go too far to one extreme. So I just have to say that for myself personally to kind of like, I want to give my pushback on that a little bit, because in experiencing those things, I moved all over this country as a child, so I was in many schools. I was always moving every year.
I would have to tell you, one of the most worst gangbanging schools.
Okay, but
80% black schools.
Well, I wanna go with
that's
Michi.
not this nation. That's not this nation. LA is a Hispanic
We're
place.
just offering.
Well, I think Michi brings up a good point though, because I think Michi. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I think Michi brings up a good point. Brother Q knows this. My eldest child wanted to, so he was ahead of his credits. He wanted to take multiple foreign language courses because he has a passion for language, and he speaks and studies several languages now, 5 languages now. He was told he couldn't take Spanish and French, that he should take a shop class. And that really pushed me into a lot of the homeschooling I'm doing now. I pulled him out of half of his classes. I sent him to community college to take those courses. I fought with his Black female counselor. I fought with her about, why would you tell a student that wants to achieve that he has to take shop versus 2 foreign languages? Who does that? So I agree with her in a sense that from a parent standpoint, I did not find them. I have a child that's autistic. you know, they wanted to basically put him in a remediated class where all the parents barely let their children play on the playground. That is what started my homeschooling journey. I started homeschooling because of that, because I saw that remediation and lack of support was rampant, and I was not going to have my children be substandard. And this is in a decent school district. This is in a, you know, living in a decent neighborhood, but because they often look at Black children and they look at us as Black parents, and they don't feel that our children are worthy of education. I understand what you're saying, Mr. Robbins, as using the facilities as facilities for but I'm saying that for the majority of Black parents, that's not the mentality they have, and their experience is that those schools are not on the side of the child. And I've seen that firsthand. This is why I've been homeschooling for 10 years.
This is why we have to take over, is what I was saying.
You cannot. You can't change the colonizer school. I'm sorry. That's why we should build our own. You didn't change that school. I promise you. Go back now and tell me that school is really benefit Black children to the fullest. You can't go in and change the colonizing school. Trust and believe me. That's why you built your own.
Yes, I'm here.
I would like for you, if you could, go into navigating the public school system.
And bros, you got it? Can I hear you? The speaker does.
We can hear you, though.
Can anyone online hear me?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, you know, I just want to try to run through some of the topics in the flyer real quick before we check, right?
Okay, you were calling me. My bad. Okay. Yes.
So John, I would like for you to discuss this navigating the public school system while pro-Black. Parents who have their children in the school system, what are some advice you have for them to make sure they can still provide a holistic and pro-Black education?
You press that teacher. Press that teacher, press that school, press that environment. And what I mean by that, make sure that that teacher, that school system reflect what you want your child to learn. Ultimately, it comes back to the parent. Because for me, I am going to say this oath to you and to everyone here. I am going to teach them about their Black self. But again, I don't think I am in the majority in that. So what you have to do, and I'm using the proverbial you, not you, cute butter, the great cute butter, the proverbial you, what you have to do is make sure that that teacher from the first day, you should know their names, you should be in constant communication with them. And I know, like the great Nietzsche said, that, you know, we're working. I get that. We're working 2 or 3 jobs, and we're trying to get by. I get that. But make one of your jobs your children's education. Whether you are homeschooling them or they're in the public school system, the way you can do it, and answer to Butter's question, the way you can do it, you have to make sure that that education that you want is demanded. No one is going to give us anything. We as Black people should know by now, no one give us anything. Everything that we've ever gotten is because we demanded it. Everything that we've ever gotten is because we organized for it. No one gives us anything. So what we have to do, and if you have to do as the parent, you have to make sure that that teacher teach them about themselves. That teacher don't just wait for February to teach Black history. Don't just wait for that teacher to bring up the big 3. Brother Malcolm, he's great. We love Brother Malcolm. Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman. Those are not the only people that have made a difference for our people. So don't wait for the school system to give you this. And I will go a little further to homeschooling. Homeschooling is a topic now that's becoming more popular, and I know the reasons why, and I get it. But if you're not equipped to homeschool your child, don't do it. Send them to Q Butter School.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Don't just pull your child out of the school and say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be the teacher, and I'm going to teach my child. This, yes, education is a difficult thing, but like myself, I've taken all of these trainings. I'm reading all of these books, I never have a summer break. I'm never on a break. I am getting myself prepared now for September because I love our people and I love what I do. But if you take out your child out of the school, you say you're going to homeschool them and you're not equipped, you're not trained, you're not able to do it, send them to Q Butter School or a reputable school that can educate that child. So go back to your question now, to circle back to your question, the parents have to demand the education that they want. No one is just going to do it for you. And I just want to touch on one thing real quick. One of the things that I heard mentioned in some of these topics, and I didn't hear it explicitly, is about identity. Many of our students, they don't know who they are. Us as adults, we don't know who we are. And when we don't know who we are, we don't know about our greatness, then anything that comes our way, we just accept it. Many people don't even like to say that we're African, that we're black people, that we're people who come from Kemet, we're people from the Nile Valley. Many of our teachers don't even know this. So in order to get the best education possible, I think we have to know who we are, and we have to instill that in our children. We have to instill a certain level of identity. So in order to navigate it, parents, educate yourself. Educators, educate yourself. Teachers, educate yourself. And then bring that out to our people. And I would say this, Q, when you can be pro-black, when you can be pro-your people in the traditional public school system, you can get backlash. You can get written up. You can get extra walkthroughs. You can get pushed out. But to me, I said a long time ago, I don't care. And I'm going to teach it because they need it. And that's just the way I carry it. And it's something that I've gotten pushed back on, but I don't care. And I'm sorry, just real quick. I remember one time I said, you know what? To Michi's point, so all the kids that get suspended, all the kids that get written up, I said one year, I'm going to take them to the Metropolitan Museum. For those of you that don't know Metropolitan Museum and not from the New York area, it has a lot of our African artifacts stolen, which that's in the museum. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take all our children who are suspended, who so-called get in trouble, who are going to get pushed out. I'm going to give them some knowledge of self, and I'm taking them to the museum. You know the teachers gave me pushback on that? Why would you do this? You should bring security. You should bring their parents. I said, no, I love my people and I'm taking them. And it was the best trip that I ever had with my students. Yes, I had to have one teacher hold the left hand of one, the right hand of one. Yes, I had to make sure that they weren't fighting on the bus because it's like 90 minutes from where I am to that museum. Yes, we had to do those things, but what I loved about that trip is when you look at the picture of us, you don't know who's been suspended, you don't know who's being pushed out, you don't know who has issues in the school system, because I said I love these kids and I don't want them to head out into the school to prison pipeline like Nietzsche is talking about. And we need more teachers like that, and sadly, we don't have enough. And I'm that way because I love my people, and I'm just going to be that way. Thank you, Q, for the question. And again, my brother, I love what you're doing. I'm going to have to hop off, but I just want to give you your great black roses, while you're here. But thank you to all the panelists who have doing everything that you're doing. Baba Amir, and all of you, I love your story. I love the conversation, and we need to keep on having these conversations. And because we need a better future for ourselves, for our children, and all our descendants. So thank you, everyone. I have to hop
Great
on.
black work, brother.
I love you. All of you keep on doing your thing. Miss Irene, keep on doing your thing. Just keep the conversation going. I love you. Keep on loving our people and keep on working towards freedom, justice, and equality. Peace. I salute you.
There you go. Baba Amir. Yes, sir. I was going to ask you if you would like to discuss developing curriculums for Black children.
I say, and I'm gonna tell you the beauty about homeschooling. It's starting a private school, taking matters in our own hands, is that we have the freedom. You get to exercise freedom. You get to build the curriculum around your child rather than trying to mold your child to a curriculum, which is what's going on in the public school system, right? And we actually do a homeschool coaching, right? And in that, I talk about 5 steps when we're developing a curriculum for our children in a private and homeschooling environment. Number 1, know the laws, know your rights, and know your power where you are. The laws are different in some states. For example, in Texas, when they integrated, white people did not want to go to school with black people. So Texas has one of the strongest homeschool movements in the country. In the state of Texas, you can pull your child out, check one box, say homeschool, and you're done. No state test, nothing. Print your high school diploma out at the crib and go on with your life, right? But in other states, it's not like that. In other states, they still require you to take a state test, even if you're homeschool or private school, right? So know your laws, know your rights, know your power. Next, you got to unschool your mind. If you're developing curriculum for our children, you have to, number 1, don't try to mimic public school. The way their system doesn't work. So some of us, when we homeschool, we think, okay, but they got to have class at 8 and we got to get out at 3, Monday through Friday. No, you don't. All right? Unschool your mind. You have the freedom and the power to be creative. You are private. So your child's education is now your business, right? You don't belong to the state, okay? The state belongs to you, all right? So you have to train your mind before you even get into developing curriculum. You have to feel freedom in order to do that, if I'm making sense, right? And then know your child and build your lesson. Trust yourself when it comes to your own baby. Don't nobody know your baby like you. Nobody. I don't care how many certificates that counselor got on the wall. Nobody knows your baby like you do, all right? Cater to and speak to your child's strengths, not your child's weaknesses, right? So don't go into curriculum development worrying about what is he doing wrong. I gotta fix that. No, first find out what they do right and build on that, because that's gonna be the foundational piece. You got a baby that's good with their hands, it's time to build, right? Let's face it, y'all. Some of us don't use trigonometry, calculus, all that kind. There's a lot of stuff you learn in public school you're not gonna use in life. Focus on your child's strengths and build around those strengths. Build your lessons around your child's interests and your family's core values, right? So when you homeschool, this is your opportunity to reinforce what you teach in the home. You can reinforce that and build that into the curriculum as well. And that's one of the powerful aspects of African-centered education. You know what I'm saying? Is that we're building around our children's culture, but you also need to build around their interests as well, right? So you have to communicate with your child. We have to communicate with our children when it comes to creating curriculum, right? And then good documentation. You got to be prepared. You have to plan what you're going to do. You have to implement your plan. You have to assess how did it go. You got to be honest with yourself, right? Don't deem yourself a failure, right? Fix it, all right? You got to know what you did wrong so we can fix it the next time. Keep good records and institutionalize yourself. Institutionalize your homeschool. Give it a name. Give yourself a shield. Create a family crest. This is an opportunity to bring the family together, and then recognize that culture to humans is like fish to water, right? So if you're going to teach math, we need to find examples of our interaction with math. When you teach science, find examples of our interaction, not first Negro examples, not just those, okay? Not just examples of us encountering science after we were encountered by Europeans, right? I love Carter G. Woodson, but he's not the first black man to put seed into the ground, right? You have to go back to when agricultural science was first created in ancient Africa and give those examples, right? So, for example, at the Uhuru Academy, we don't have a Black History class. Not at UASC, not in our online program, not at PCLA. There's no Black History class. Our story is woven inside of every course. Every course, you're going to encounter yourself. You're learning science, you're learning engineering, but your examples is African engineering, right? If your primary foundational examples. So when you're building curriculum, keep culture at the forefront. If you're teaching word problems, if you're writing or creating word problems, right? Use our names, right? You don't have to say Susie. You don't have to say John went to the store. You know what I'm saying? No, Mustafa goes to the store. Butter goes to the store, right? We all go to the store. So put yourself in that curriculum. Also, give your children the opportunity to be creative. At the Uhuru Academy, the first class every day is creative writing. You know, what's on your mind this morning? Sometimes it's student choice. Write whatever you want to write about this morning. You just have to write. If you don't want to write about why you don't want to write. You just have to write. Some days I may give you an African proverb and we'll do a little discussion and you write what you feel about the proverb. Then we get into our math, our science, you know what I'm saying, our STEM programs, our coding, right? So and also when developing curriculum for African children, right? We're not trying to transform them into Africans that lived 1,200 years ago. We're trying to equip them and empower them to beat the enemy. All right? So do your research. Where are the careers going to be? Where is business going to go? Right? So, for example, coding to me should be taught just like English, literature, whatever. Coding needs to be a language that's taught. They need to get behind it because they need to start writing and creating languages, computer languages, and that sort of thing. You know, and so we have to make sure that we're on the cutting edge and that we're looking to the future. You know, Sankofa, we build upon the past so that we can move into the future. So I hope that answered the question. So when building, and there are a lot of resources out there. I recommend Kamali Academy. Dr. Kamara does a lot of great work. I know that in the Zayax Institute, I know Q, a lot of stuff you had to create. Well, it's time to curate what you've created. You know what I'm saying? And make that available out here for those who are journeying into homeschooling, independent education. You can call me Uhuru Academy. We consult and we help people build curriculum. I don't believe in one set cookie cutter curriculum for everyone. I believe that we need to be in the process of creating curriculum based on our goals, based on our needs, our regions, our languages, our culture, that sort of thing. And then that day is going to come. We're going to have this big old pot of lessons that we've curated that'll educate the globe. So that's how I feel about it. Black power.
Black power.
I was gonna add. So I know a lot of people are against the core curriculum. I'm actually a fan and proponent of core curriculum. Why? For me, communication is essential with education, but it's a view of it. So I have like more of a machine cookie cutter view, you know, a little bit more mundane view of education to some sense. Maybe come across as a Marine. It's like you just gotta do push-ups. That's just what it is. You just gotta practice. Like you would be like, look, at the end of the day, you gotta do your multiplication, you gotta write it down. Whether you wanna sing it, write it, tap dance it, draw it, you gotta remember 3 times 2. However you figure it out. Now, I know that's creative. Like, no, I'm gonna get the 5%.
The what can be similar, but the how we have to have.
The how, exactly. You know, and so the parents, I think, what got mixed up was that we have white folks telling us what we're supposed to know, and then telling us how we're supposed to know it, and then how to teach it. Now it's really about the expectation. So the core curriculum is literally just the expectation of what someone's required to know. And so for me, like I became an audio engineer, and the only reason I was able to become an audio engineer is because I understood how to take the core curriculum and teach it to myself. And so if you want to become a veterinarian, you know, you look up the core curriculum and you know standards of requirements that you need to know to profess that you are this.
See, those are vision development-based core curriculums. Those are empowerment-based, skill-building core curriculums. You know what I'm saying? Not a core curriculum that's just teaching you basic reading, writing, and arithmetic, but not sending you in any particular direction of focus, right? And so we definitely need more of an end-game focus when developing our curriculum. If you have a baby that's in love with airplanes and that loves to fly, well, yeah, of course, you need to learn nouns, verbs, and adjectives, but let's learn noun, verbs, and adjectives that are related to piloting and aviation science, right? So let's blend those goals in with those core skill sets that you need and allow our children to study different tracks. I want to be a doctor. I'm on this doctor thing. All right, let's learn about that. You need a vocabulary based on medicine. You need you know, and they might come to you and say, you know what, I don't want to be that no more. But now I know why I don't want to be it because I studied it, you know. So now let's go somewhere else with it. So a vision development focus, an empowerment-based focus is key when developing curriculum for our children.
And just to add on to, so Brother Robbins, Mr. Robbins is like my code mind when it comes to like knowing the like. I know he got his hat upside down in the loft, but he knows all the little codes, all the little codes in the school system. Like he knows all the little terminology.
I say it.
You know, and so like interdisciplinary goal setting. But see, I find a lot of teachers, so parents, homeschooling is more than just history.
Right.
So let me just say that, right?
Right.
Science, they gotta know how to write, they gotta know how to read, they gotta comprehend what they know, they gotta know social studies, they gotta know STEM, they gotta know these other things, not just African history. Most of what people want to know is like 1500 to like actually most people go backwards. They usually go from like Egypt to 1500s, and that's like we're done. So there's a lot more information in, and the goal is to develop a person who can actually produce for society.
Spiritual development as well.
You know, so all these spiritual development, mental development, all these things go into someone who can produce for society. So that's how I wanted to bring up like how all of these things connect. In our institute this year, we pushed social studies has to connect with math, English has to connect with this part. All of these things have to connect. Right? Sciences, but I know Robin, you can give it to him a little bit more, you know, properly. I don't think I'm saying it right.
Yeah, you're doing a good job, man. He was just talking about having interdisciplinary connection and having the concepts bounce throughout the different subjects matter so that learning is reinforced in each stage or different stages of the learning process. So as they move from one class to one class, what they learned in one class is applicable to the next class and to the next class, so that by the time they're done with it, they've used it across the curriculum and they've applied it in different aspects so they can judge the value and worth of it in different settings. So it's not just something they have to learn in this class as reference some multiple choice, something that they just throw out, because we really don't do a multiple choice based learning system in our program. We try and make sure everything is interconnected and each subject is applicable to the following subject or the previous subject that they had the day before or upcoming. As I tell them all the time when they're writing sentences in my course, I want them using vocabulary for the other courses so that they learn to function with that vocabulary. So when they go back and have to write in the next course, they can actually use the word from a position of strength, but with a grammar concept that I've taught them to employ in their writing. And it takes time to teach them this way because it's a more comprehensive form of learning. And then it requires you also as a teacher to at least have rudimentary understandings of other subjects, even if that's not your forte. You still need to understand where this subject is going, some of the requirements that subject needs is going to put forth to the student, so that you can use that in your knowledge to develop a lesson that facilitates their development in that course. And I like working with Miss Irene because what she does in social studies reinforces what goes on in my literature class, and then I try and do the same in literature so that when they get back to social studies, they can say, oh, yes, we was reading about that in the novel, or that applies to the time period we were discussing in that novel Mr. Robbins had. That's the social background of that character. Oh, Mr. Robbins, yeah, what you're talking about right now in this book is relevant to what we learned from Miss Irene's class when we did this about this in Oklahoma or whatever time period or little incident they might be discussing in terms of social studies or history. So in Ziax, to create that comprehensive interdisciplinary program, that's what we focus on, is making sure that some aspect of the program is applicable throughout the course.
I see. That's the approach we take at our South Carolina campus as well. You know, it's an African-centered STEM focus, but we interconnect our core subjects with the project-based education that they're dealing with. For example, we built our own computer lab this year using Raspberry Pi computers, right? But while they were building that in inside of our writing, in our literature class, they were learning how to write processes, troubleshooting, and FAQs, right? Based on because that is a style of writing, right? And so I feel exactly what you're talking about. That interconnectedness, it makes the school day almost seamless. Like it's like an adventure every day, and it stays relevant throughout the day. And it's exciting, and they can see the fruits of their labor when you go from paper to project and vice versa.
They always do presentations and projects so they can demonstrate and see their own application of whatever they're learning. I don't want to, it doesn't matter to me. I want to see your presentation and project based on what you learned. You can score high on the test, easy. Can you apply that? Can you create
applied science?
In a situation, put it to use in a scenario or a situation is relevant and demonstrate that to a group of people, because that's where your success is going to come from. It's not going to be on the paper.
Absolutely. I say.
Now, another topic where I wanted Miss Irene, this is me to really discuss. And not just make it short, but suggestions for parents who have children with special needs.
What I would say with those suggestions, you mean like in the public school?
Just whatever suggestions you have with children with special needs.
I don't know about like Irene's experience or anybody else's, but I have 2 children that had IEPs, which is individual education plans, because you deal with them a little different because they're dealing with stuff, right? One of my children have Turner syndrome. David, he has autism. I would like to say Asperger's. He's very high functioning, but he still deals with some social issues, right? But I found in the public schools, like I was there. I was cussing people out. I was at every IEP meeting. If someone going with my kid 10 minutes later, the school was right up the street. I was in the office, right? But I found that no matter what we did with the IEPs, like they didn't respect them. Like they had rules that said, if this happens with the child because he's dealing with this, go and call like his counselor and let them kind of help him or give him a timeout, or maybe he's a certain way, you let him take his test over here. Like they follow none of those rules. And instead of it, my son is in the office, but I'm like, why he in the office when that's not how you're supposed to deal with him in this situation? So they never respected the IEP. I have not found that any school that my kids ever went to in the public school ever really dealt with the IEP. A lot of that is because there's too many kids in the classroom. Teachers are not getting to know the children individually to figure out what it is they need. They're treating everybody the same. As far as the homeschool aspect, what I would say, I've had a lot of people, even on my channel, ask me, can I have an autistic child? Can they go to this school? What I will say is what people have said plenty times in this conversation this evening is that your child's education is your responsibility, right? And so what I would say is, if you were to put your kids in SciEx, right, they're going to help your children with all of it. You don't have to be a science teacher. You have to be an English teacher. They're going to help teach your kids, right? But you do have to be there and be present. When something is going on the other side of that computer, you have to be there to help your child deal their way through it. You're going to have to sit down and maybe help them with their work. Whatever their disabilities are, you have to be willing to help them with that, right? And so I would just say that's the biggest thing. Like, this is your child. And if you care about their well-being, a lot of parents, like what you said earlier, like we will send our kids off to the public school and it's just a place to watch and babysit your children and you're not really involved. You're not going to homeschool your kids and not be involved, right? So just know that you're going to have that involvement.
Say it again.
You're not going to homeschool your kids and not be involved. And don't think as SciEx, you can do the same thing. Because what I'm saying is they might teach your children, but guess what? If you're not in the room, how you know your kid got their camera on? Do you know if they laying in the bed sleeping? Do you know if they having any problem with I'm in the other room. My kids could come to me at any moment, and they do. Mom, can you help me with this sentence? I need to figure out something else with my words, And so you have to be present. And if you have a child that has a disability, as a parent, you should be the main one there helping them through their disability, right? And so you know best what your child's limitations are, and your home and your lifestyle should be set up to be functional for those disabilities with that child. So I would just say, in any other setting, be present with that child, right? I don't want you to think that your children can't go to SciEx. If your child can go to public school and you think they're going to give your disabled child, children that deal with special needs and things like that, if you think they're going to give your child an education, then understand your child will get a much better one when they're at home with you. But that goes back to, you birthed that baby. That is your child. Are you avoiding taking the responsibility of dealing with that kid? Because you're going to have to take those things on, right? And so that's all I have to say, is that you will have to be present. When David has issues, there's not a principal office. There's not a counselor. I am the counselor. If I need him to walk away from the screen for a moment and I need to deal with my son or use some of the techniques in therapy that we use, that's my job to do that. It's not necessarily going to come across on the screen from a teacher there, you know. Although I will say that in Zyx, you know, it's smaller classes. The teachers know the students. So a lot of times, depending on what the issues are, you know, those teachers can help your child through it if it's something that's a little bit more. So I will say that with being in Zyx, that it's more personal. It's not like they're just looking at my child. Like, everybody knows that's David. They know how he is. They know his ways. And so there are certain things that they automatically do because they know how my child is. So I will give it that and say that it's a lot easier than being in a public school because he's not just a child with a name. Right? Y'all know who my son is. And so a lot of things can be rectified. But if not, he needs me. So I'm just be straight up. There ain't no magic, you know, nothing to it. If you're going to put your kids in public school, then you should be present if they have a child with special needs. If not, they're going to play your kids. They're going to send your kids home. They're going to suspend them. They're going to mistreat them. And they're going to medicate them. They're going to drug them up and have your kids walking around the cafeteria like they on heroin or something. I tell you no lie. They're going to give your kids Ritalin because they don't know how to sit down. Guess what? If my kids at home and your kids at homeschool and they 7, look, they in their room. If they want to stand while they take their class, stand up, jump around, just keep the screen on and keep paying attention, right? So you get to have more control over that. But sadly, there are a lot of parents that actually like sending their kids to public school and they can't wait till summertime is over or Corona is over because you want to send your kid back to school. So, you know, I think, you know, with COVID and all this quarantine, it has really shown how many parents don't want to be bothered with y'all kids because y'all ready for them to go back to this school and you ready to give them that vaccination, which is a whole nother story. And so you realize you don't even really like raising your kids. You like sending them to the school so everybody else can raise your child, although you had them. I'm just saying. So, you know, be present. That's your child, and nobody is going to be present and help them through their special needs more than you will. You don't get to remove yourself from that and expect everybody else to treat your child right, but you're not there to be the main advocate for that. So, I mean, that's my advice.
Yeah, I completely agree with Michi's advice, and I also just want to touch on something that she didn't, and this is me in particular. Like, first of all, I want to give this caveat. Disabilities are varying. So for me, as having a child with Asperger's, my approach was very different than I saw in public school. And this, like I said, this was what prompted me to homeschool. I think within reason, right? And let within reason really resonate with you. Do not coddle your child. The world is not going to coddle them. I know with a child with Asperger's, they're like, no loud noises, carry all of his comfort stuff with him, like do all this. And I'm like, the real world, you know, strict schedules because they don't like to be off schedule. And I'm like, that's fine, except for in the real world, people aren't going to adjust themselves around my child. I need my child to function around other people, not just around the people that are going to, you know, twist and contort themselves to make them comfortable. So I think as parents of children with disabilities, it's really important that we push our children to excel. And also, going back to what the brother was saying, find the thing, I think Baba Amin was saying this, find the thing that your child is passionate about. I know with my son, he was really obsessed with vehicles. He liked to line them up. He would spend hours doing it. You couldn't touch them. And then morphing that into an interest in engineering, right? Morphing that into an interest in something else, developing that, and also refusing to let him act on impulse. A lot of times when our children have disabilities, we feel a lot of compassion for that, and we feel really protective over them, and it can actually stunt them. And then we also feel defensive when that child is challenged. So in the Institute, several of my little kids in the younger class and some of the older kids have some learning issues, right? And the learning issues vary. I push the kids. My demands are similar for those children within reason. And the pushing, you have to allow that. You can't be on the defensive. You can't coddle your child. They will not grow. You'll stifle them. And you have to really make a decision. You're not going to be able to take care of that child forever. Do you want them to function? Do you want them to be able to navigate society? If they have a disability where they're higher functioning, I mean, most people talk to my son with Asperger's, even professionals at this point, and you would never know. You would never know. But that came because at some point I had to make a choice that I was going to let him be normal, and also within reason, not broadly advertising that your child, you know, has a disability. there were years that my son did not even know, because that was not my introduction. Oh, this is so-and-so, he has such and such. Because then that morphs the way people deal with them, and it adjusts their worldview and how they deal with other people in an educational environment. So I think we need to just raise our standards and raise our expectations for disabled children, not coddle them. And that's pretty much all I would add to what Michi said.
Somebody said in my chat, they said that they mentioned ADD and ADHD and that's different from autism. So, I mean, we're speaking to I just want to address that and say we're speaking to the disabilities that our children have. But I also want to say that on some Umar Johnson kind of stuff, like that ADHD and ADD, sometimes they be lying to you, sis, or brother, whoever you is. Like, I don't know how old your child is, but it's natural for children not to want to sit still. It is natural for them not to keep their focus for very long. It is natural for them to be all over the place. Like, that's being a kid. I find it very interesting that they penalize our kids for that and say, oh, give them written, right? And have your kids drugged up in school. Because I actually have a daughter. My daughter has been diagnosed with Turner syndrome, but she also was diagnosed with ADHD, right? And they would give her written. And the truth is she hasn't taken that drugs in years. And she is 17 now, and there's nothing wrong with her. She was being a child at the age she was supposed to be a child, right? So sometimes I think we need to stop taking people's assessment of what's always wrong with our kids, because white schools now have these desks that allow kids to pedal, because they've discovered that white children need this motor skill going on, and they need to move around, because just sitting still doesn't work well for them. So they need to exercise it. But I want you to go to them ghetto schools and ask me if you see one pedal desk in that mud, much less some running water. So I just need, they spit so the kids can pedal their feet, because the kids get agitated at a certain age. But your black kids get told they need drugs and that they have a problem when they're just being a kid. So I just want to say that about bringing that up as a disability. I don't always agree with them on that. I think they lying to you. Sometimes, depending on the situation, your kid is just being a kid. So I just want to know that.
Can I double down on that and say, a lot of times we have kinesthetic learners, right? We have children that need to be active to really learn. My eldest is that way, and if you're not homeschooling and you have a child that's in regular school, I went to his teachers and I was like, I'm going to give him a squish ball. I'm going to give him something to do. He's going to need to be able to do it in your class, because I picked up on that when he was young. I would be teaching him his alphabet and he'd be running all over the room, but he'd be yelling out the letters. So, I mean, what do I care as long as you're learning? So, you know, we have to also recognize a lot of times these children, like Michi said, are normal, or they're kinesthetic learners, which means they are active learners, and they're being pathologized, and that is very problematic.
Black children are grossly misdiagnosed when it comes to behavioral or mental health issues in the class, learning disabilities in the classroom. It's a racket. I mean, it's this monetary incentive. The school gets double the subsidy for children that are declared learning disabled. Pharmaceutical companies get in on the game. They get contracts with the Ritalin and the drugs, and now even parents can get a disability check as long as you ride along.
Talk about those checks, Baba, because some people send their kids up the river.
We actually had an issue with a friend of mine at an alternative school. We had an issue one day where she went and got drug tested. The student mama took her to get drug test, because the check, you got to flunk the drug test, okay, in order to get the check. I mean, passing the drug test is having a drug in the system. She didn't have it in her system, man. Her mama must have beat her or tried to beat her from one side of school to the other, because she didn't have the drug in her system. And to watch the baby cry saying, "Mama, it makes me sick. It makes me sick when I take it." Watching her cry and get beat because she's messing up the money. You know what I'm saying? It shed a light, you know, because this wasn't a student that was also getting counseling for whatever trauma that was going on with her at the same time. It was just the pill, and that's it. Yeah. You know? And it's cruel, man. It's cruel, and that's criminal. And, you know, I sat with a principal one time. He said, "Bob, I mean, I have 96 black students in my special ed program." He said 6 of them belong in there.
Yeah.
So to add on, so you should know there's something called a DSM-5. So I think that's the right thing. So that's a psychiatric board determination standards for children with any special needs. So ADHD, autism, Asperger's, all the different things, anxiety. But one thing I like, and Michi and I was talking about this, and I have to give it up to them. They have a new standard, and the first standard is a cultural view. Understand that somebody who's diagnosed in a child is going to see a lot of the normalities through their living lens.
Yes.
So, not just European, for example, a lot of sisters or people that come to the program, my view is boys don't cry unless you're ready to do push-ups. That's not a good thing or a bad thing. That's my ideology. You know what I mean? That's my view of boys. And I have to learn that there's nothing wrong with a mother or a brother who's like, look, my son is allowed to cry. I just need to know I don't want your son around me. But I just, understanding, but before I would look at that child, I was raised to look at that child and have an issue. Like in my family, my men were looking at a boy cries for too long without being told, you gotta either get a beating, hold a corner, but it's something wrong with you. And that's how it's conditioned. I had to really understand that's a conditioning I was taught. And so we all want to respect somebody. And I'm not even calling my white folk teachers. This is an our community because I met some parents. I'm in 2 years, and I met parents who did not have their child diagnosed, and I wanted to call the city on it. Because once I realized how serious this was, I didn't know what a runner was. Anybody who deals with children with autism, when I say you have a runner, if you have a runner and that child's not diagnosed, it's professionally wrong to not call somebody on that camera. When you know that child's a runner. I never knew what that meant till 2 years ago, and this kid is running. And I'm talking about full speed, and it's like, I professionally can't do it. I'm just being, I can't help this child. We don't have the means of being able to have somebody who's just stand around and two people running with this kid. And I'm talking about full speed, reaching like this, and he is full speed. And the parent doesn't have the child diagnosed.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was. My Black Power card got really confused me. I'm like, am I snitching? Am I not helping the child out? I don't know what to do in that situation. I'm going to be honest, I've called him off this time. I might have hit Baba up about that also because I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, why is this child diagnosed? Why is this woman on the brain? And so I know some of us have this white person over their list. That's why it's good for us to have our own Dr. Shauna. You have professionals in the community you can reach out to, get full assessment.
You have to do that research. You have to go find those people.
In terms of assessment, the school, like Nietzsche said, just so I can put this in the homeschooling loans and to school loans. Your child is under a contractual, you are under a contractual agreement with your county that states that you will provide the education to your child to make sure they meet the standards of the federal government, which is the GED. Your state has to also meet with that compulsory law and agreement. Once you're an American citizen, you have agreed to that compulsory law. It's the same thing with vaccination. Education is compulsory. That's understood. So we all understand that. The legalities become different because when you sign that child to the school system, they now become responsible for that child. The school system, like she said, is not the court system. The court system and the police system don't use the same things, but they use the same jargon and they all respect adjudicatory positions. A superintendent is an adjudicatory position for the state. A school principal is an adjudicatory position for the state. A school superintendent's courtroom is equivalent to the courtroom's eyes in these little counties. Not in New York City. But when you're in the back of Colorado and the superintendent's wife is the same person who's the guidance counselor's head of the guidance counselor department, and the same one who's the head of the truancy department, that's a whole different ballgame you're playing with. And I want my Black folk to understand, those living in those small towns, they're not going to play fair with you. And their view of education is according to the law. So if a school psychologist said that your child is deemed needing some form of blah, 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 and you don't argue that statement, you are like not, and you're just, when you leave the letter open from the bills, like, oh, I'll just leave it open. The courts don't respect that. You go to court and you did not respond to a court date, you're like a criminal to them. And it's the same thing with ACS, the same thing with school psychologists, the same thing with the superintendent. And they respect the city's money. So if you waste the principal's money, they're going to look at you, you waste the city's ACS money. They don't care about none of this black card you got. If the school psychologist said your child has ADHD and you don't agree, and you didn't go to the legal aid department and get the state to do your own diagnosis of your child, they're going to look at you as a non-professional parent. They're going to say, what kind of parent is going to have a principal say, my child has ADHD, and you don't get a second opinion? Let me repeat that. You don't get your own professional opinion. The school psychologist is an attractive position to the state, to the school, not to the state. That's why a school psychologist cannot get you SSI. That's why the federal government does not look at the school psychologist paperwork. You have to have a state-sanctioned doctor diagnose your child. I'm just saying it to all the parents online, so y'all know that. So just because they got ADHD, they just can't start drugging your child up. And if your child requires drugs, the federal government is supposed to be giving you money. And that also brings us to Family Practice Acts, the FAID Acts, and a bunch of other acts that go in prior to drugging your child up. Where if you have IEP, the amount of money that's attached to your child goes up from $200 an hour to about $1,500 an hour. And if your child is not getting an A in school, that money belongs to you. You can sue your district. You call it, I'll help you. You can sue your district, and that district has to pay for your child to go to any school of your choice. I just enrolled a parent who's got $70,000. So you have to do this. This is the legalities. So they say your child is this, you go and do this. And just to give you a coup, in the yeshivas, all the children have special needs. They getting money. $1,500 an hour, Jewish-owned school, Jewish-owned director, Jewish teachers. They like, look, I'm putting cases on all of you.
You all got special
all you got special needs. And they go with 21, but we need this money till 24. Who you think pushed the case in New York to 24? Who you think was pushing the case in New York to 24? They're like, no. Special need, SSI, you get to 24. So as we go into this Black Power arena, compulsory laws is a big thing for us. Baba Amin, myself, other Black institutions, we don't have a voice when it comes to independent schooling. You do. When Mr. Robbins was talking about the compulsory relationship between your Social Security, your taxes, and the state's requirement to provide you with education, technically with a livelihood that includes something that would benefit education. They're not supposed to give you education. And so, some states give you access to all of their resources. Some states don't. Like we said, you have to know your law. Especially as a homeschool parent. Because if you're in a state that has full privatized homeschooling, they will not help you with your child with special needs. You have to go to SSI. And for some of you who's anti-government, that is not a bad thing to do. If you are a single parent or a struggling parent, you're better off going to get that money from SSI. There's no shame in it. You need help. So I just want to put out this. I'm just parent. Stop. I think, did we get to
Can I say this too? A lot of people go there to go and get the check, right? But there's so many other services that are actually offered for your disabled child. When they go off to college, if they need to take their tests in other places, they help them with finding a job when they actually get grown because they're disabled, right? There are so many services. But for me, I've met so many people in the hood that get a check, but they never utilize any. If your child needs transport, then we taking them where they need to go. If they need extra help in school, they got extra funds. They help them once they they get grown. So I'm just saying, if we're going to take advantage of that and they say, well, you know, you get your check or whatever, understand there's a whole lot when your child is considered disabled and they've approved them for that check. They approved them for a million other things. We never use them, though. And I'm talking about even up to being in college or even being a grown adult. There are all kinds of services. If you have a child that's disabled and they're on Social Security, right, disability, if they go to college, or even if they're not, when it's time to find a job, there are services that will find your child a job, because you can't discriminate because they're disabled. So they find jobs where, kind of like affirmative action, they have to allow, certain jobs have to have so many, you know, special needs or disabled people. And so, you know, these disadvantages that they have in life, let's be real, some kids have some really harsh special needs. Like, I'm talking about ADHD and Asperger's, but there's some really harsh needs out there, and you know, special needs people. And so there's a lot. And I'm just saying that I know a lot of people who get that check and never take advantage of the 1,003,060,72 billion other things that they offer your child, and they never use them. So,
take advantage of
yeah, use them.
All right, so I think we went through, one part, and then we're going to go to questions. Now we're almost right there. I want to get the topics in the before I go to the question. I want to get the topics. So, Blue, could you talk to inspiring the next generation?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, where we come from in our community, intelligence is not looked towards as something that's aspirational. You know what I'm saying? So we have just made it a hallmark of our existence to make sure that when children see us, you know, they know that we embody a level of intelligence. It's cool to be intelligent. You know what I'm saying? It's cool to think like an entrepreneur or an industrialist rather than just a worker. You know, it's cool to work together. It's cool to have ideas and plans that are not what's considered, you know, the Western standardized models of how they are orientating our children, you know, to come into the world. So just being that particular standard, you know, and learning children's language, you know, not acting like a 19 or 15 or 18-year-old to connect with these children, but, you know, just connecting with them on a level where we don't have to come down necessarily from where we're at. You know, case in point, rappers would be like, I'm 40 years old, but I gotta make music for 19-year-olds and things of that nature. You know, we don't necessarily believe that we have to do that. You know, we just create a particular standard that makes it aspirational for children to say, I might want to do that when I grow up. You know what I mean? And then make that accessible to say, all right, well, this requires this, that, and that step. You know? So that comes through education. That comes from being in the community, connecting with these children, and also having influence in the lives of their parents. So their parents can be like, this is somebody who I want you to look at. I hear that from parents all the time, that they're like, not only do I watch your shows, but, you know, my children came in and they started watching it as well. I hear from grandparents, you know, I meet 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, you know, children of you know, people is like, my child was looking at you through the womb, you know. They've been listening to y'all since they was born. You know what I'm saying? So, and being mindful of the responsibility that comes with that as well. You know, always like when I program and make things, I always have a imaginary audience in my head. So I'm mindful, or even when I'm on live and I'm talking, I have an imaginary audience that I'm speaking to, and there's always a child in that audience, and a nano. You know what I'm saying? Or the Instagram model too. You gotta be able to, you know, be diverse. That's for everybody.
All right, so you think it's cool if we go over a couple? Or we have till 11, right? All right, so what should we do? I want to make sure you have enough time. Everybody got your 2 cents in, or should we go to questions? Anybody want to go anything special?
You know, I just want to stress once again, accountability. You need to have records and accountability. You have to make the students accountable for their learning process and experience. If you do that, you'll get better results, and they'll be more engaged and more involved when they know that they're going to be held accountable for what they're supposed to know or apply. Don't let them get away. And accountability is not, did you do it and did you get an A? It's that application part. And the last thing I would say is if you're homeschooling or you're not, keep a daily assignment log or sheet for your students' assignments. This way you know what was taught that day, what they did or did not do, what was required of them, and see the progress. And you can also see when you have to reteach it or it's being retaught by another educator or facilitator. But those things are key, accountability and record keeping, especially a daily assignment log. And the students should do it. The parents shouldn't be the one doing it. The students should keep a daily log in whatever they're learning.
I guess I want to say this real quick. Somebody said in my chat a while back, how do you homeschool your kids when you got to work? I want to say to you, you talked about, you asked me, as far as the future and our youth. I would tell you that if you've never thought about starting your own business, this is probably the time. I think there's a lot of things that we don't do in life. And if your kids don't motivate you to do these things, then I don't even know why you have some kids. I'm just be real. You're sorry and you shouldn't be a parent. I'm just being mean, just being real, because at the end of the day, and I know people might say, well, starting a business ain't that easy, but you're in a new day and age. Yes, it is. If you're online watching us right now, you're on something that can make you a whole lot of money. I don't care. Drop ship something, white label something, affiliate market something. I don't know. Go on Instagram. You always on go live until they monetize your videos and turn on your badges or something. Okay? It is too many ways for you to make money today. And if you ain't sure how to use online and you the older parent, go get your babies, because them babies know their social media more than you ever could. Let them help you with that TikTok and go ahead and sell them mink lashes. Do something, because it is too easy this day and age to make money online. And it's not about a brick and mortar building. And it's also not about somebody even knowing what color you is or who you are. They're just there for your product. Find a sweat bill, something, some furniture. You can drop ship everything. You don't believe me? Go find out if you don't know, right? So I just want to say that there are way too many opportunities to be able to be financially stable this day and age. But the thing is, how bad do you want it? And if your child is not enough motivation for you, I'm going to repeat again. Why do you have children? You're a bad parent. Like, if your kids don't motivate you to do everything as far as live for them, maintain for them, and die for them, I don't know what you're doing with kids, right? So I just want to throw that out there. Like, I understand people are like, I got to work. Okay, so stop slaving for somebody else and learn how to finally do something. Let your kid be the motivation behind that if you've never thought about that, right? And so I'm not up here to, say nothing about my Google. Google how you make money online. If you ain't got no money to pay for a course because everybody and their mama teaching you how, Google it then. It's your friend.
Right. Or start a business with your child. You know what I'm saying?
I got 12-year-olds that have taken my class to teach them.
That could be part of the curriculum. That could be part of the homeschooling, starting a business.
I have kids that have websites, right?
There's so many, like she said, there's so many opportunities. And with our inquiry going out into the world, we find all this information and bring it back. And primarily it's for the children, because they're the ones that can connect with this to get it. They get it like, I got to explain it over and over.
Do it with them, make it a family project.
Yeah, but the children get it, and they're excited, they're engaged, because this is where they're at. You're meeting them where they're at. You know what I'm saying? With the parents, you probably got to come all the way up here, but the children get it. And then if you make it a project, you know what I mean? If you make it something that's interactive, where they're like, okay, I'll handle the accounting part of it, I'll handle this, but you handle the front end. You be the talent. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of this is applicable, and you can literally, build your family business, and your children can probably help you retire.
Can I add on to that? Just speaking to women, because we have a high concentration of single parent homes that are female led in the Black community, and some of these women are very impoverished. And so if you're a woman who wants to homeschool, but you really are very poor, and let's say you're receiving some kind of social services assistance. Now, let me say this, I'm not for social security numbers and all that, but if you have one and you're utilizing it to get benefits for your kids, in almost every state, I don't think there's any states it's not like this, you can watch one other family's children. So if I were you, especially if multiple children, I would go find another woman who has multiple children. You probably have some work requirements you have to do. One of you guys get a job working a night shift, a factory job, stocking job, something like that. One of you work a day shift, and then you guys can watch each other's children, and that will bring supplemental income into your home, because the states will allow through those childcare programs, and I've said this to a lot of poor mothers, for you to watch one other family's children. And if they have, if a woman has 3 or 4 children, you watch her kids, that's a little extra income for your family. And then you can homeschool during the day. Then she works at night. You watch her kids at night. And then you're able to get some supplemental income as well. Or 3 of you can do it, right? And rotate who watches whose kids and stagger your schedules. I think this is something that's very effectual for poor families, especially because of the fact that you have more flexibility with your work, right? Because it's not as big of a deal if you can find another position doing something or changing shifts and things like that than somebody that's really stuck to a 9 to 5. So in addition to the entrepreneurial aspects, because I do think there's a lot of ways to hustle and make money, you just have to look for those things. I think also if you're feeling like I need that capital to do that, right? Or I don't have a usable skill. I'm not a writer or a coder, or, I don't do any sort of design that I can just come out the box with talent and make money. Then you need to start thinking about creative use of the resources that you're already using, sort of like they were saying, if your child has an IEP or special needs, utilizing the full spectrum of those resources and seeing how to have those things work for you to pull yourself out of that rut whilst educating your children at home, versus just kind of getting stuck in the system. And so a lot of these programs can give you a leg up if you're clever with how to use them. So yeah, pair yourself with 1 or 2 other mothers, stagger your schedules, watch each other's kids. You can do that without a license, I think in every state, for 1 family at least. The more kids a mom has, the better, right? And that will bring in extra income and allow you all to homeschool your children and give you safe babysitters for your kids, which I think is just a third, bonus, because that's a concern for a lot of parents as well. So that's my suggestion. That's workable in the real world. And I've helped some ladies do this, so y'all feel free to reach out to me, and I will explain how to utilize the child care services in your state to do that. If you need at least 2 families, right? 3 preferably, but 2 families. And it's legal. It's legal, y'all. It's not a hustle like that.
Look, I want to say this to the people in the chat, because some of y'all feelings that they like, so you're a bad parent. Let me rephrase what I was saying. If you are not giving 1,000% to make sure that you are able to provide for your children, to make sure they're not in the same rut that you grew up in, so that they can have better what they're supposed to have in life, yeah, like you're a bad parent. I ain't saying you got to have nothing online, but you know how many people I watch have children in our community, let's be real, and they wait to get 18, they have a baby just so they can get housing, and housing is $30 a month, and this is why you did it. You don't really care about being a parent, you just want to have an easy ride in a small rent. So what I'm saying is parents like that, like I'm talking about real parents, like you birthed your kids. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but where there's a will, there is a way. I watch crackheads find a way to get crack when they ain't got $1 in their pocket. So what I'm saying to you is that for everybody that says right now I'm in a bad situation, but I know that my child can't stay in the situation they're in, what I'm telling you is that as a parent, find a way, even if the way that I'm suggesting is not there. Do you have a family member that can help these kids stay at school? Is there somebody that's at home anyway, your mother, a grandma, or somebody, right, that you can get to do these things, or find a way to elevate yourself so that you can. And all I'm saying is, if you're okay, right, with staying in those situations and not doing anything to work towards that goal, then yes, something is wrong with that. But if you're actively finding a way, trust me, I've never met anybody in life that is determined to do something, and if they keep putting one foot in front of the other and taking a step and taking something every day to make it happen, sooner or later, guess what? It happens. So I hope I've clarified what I meant. Get out your feelings. If you feel like you're a bad parent, that has more to do with you than me, because that's not what I meant in the comment, okay?
Are we taking questions? Because my chat has a couple of questions.
Y'all have anything y'all want to add? I would say let's do questions now, because I don't want to forget. Let's do like a little half hour on questions. Is that cool? Maybe 3-4 questions?
Okay.
So make sure I know you want to go first.
It's a 2-part question. The the first part is when we are dealing with parents who are coming from a public school mindset. And I know you and I will talk about that, right? Getting them to be more involved and not have, well, I sent my child for it's on you, and I'm how we help overcome that mindset, because we try to pass over their feet to the fire and how they get into their view. The other side, I know Ziax provides social service. Excuse me, and Marshall is very helpful people when it comes to the side, but they provide social service to so many families. How do we implement that? The school, when they do it, they're ready to call DHS and say, oh, these parents didn't have food. But when they open their doors and give the social service side of Zion and say, we're a full service community, number one, how do they get people to embrace that without abusing it, right? Because they have taken on people's children, and we have tried to overcome the plans of my child's got all the excuses, right? So how do we walk with them, right, until they're able to, okay, now that's enough of, because people just let them just walk and just walk and won't say nothing. And I'm like, yo, they take it their kindness for granted. These are nuts, it's just don't help. And, how do we implement that and kind of overcome some of our community's mentality of, well, these are my people, so I feel it's okay to take advantage of. You tell them it's not, and you just straight up do that. See, Q be being too nice, so Q just needs to hire somebody that's okay with saying, these are the rules, you will not break them. If you do, we're going to kick you and your kid out because we ain't got time to be here till 11 o'clock, ma'am. Don't you know that I'm here all day and all night? I want to go home. Don't I have kids too? People should stop. People only going to do what you let them. And so we've had this conversation plenty, and it's like, don't let them take advantage, because I find some of these parents expect them to be like the public school. They bring the kids there, and they're like, oh, great, this is a babysitter. And instead of picking my kid up at 3, 5, 6, school goes late. 6 o'clock when school is over, guess what? I'm going to come at 10 o'clock. What is wrong with you? They would do that one time to me, and they would never do it again. I might not even let their kid back in, and they come until their parents signs this paperwork, and we have an understanding that you know what's going on here, ma'am. So, again, I just want to say, I think that we have to set structure and some rules to that. I think that that's the solution to that, right? Make it clear what people can and can't do, because whether it's black or white or anything, I've learned in life people will do what you let them, right? So you just have to make it clear that, so that they're not taking advantage. I mean, of course, we're here to help, like you said, in a whole full, program that we help with a lot of things that you need, not just the schooling. You're right. We're like a family. There's always somebody who is IX in the building, right? And when we get here in Atlanta, I'm sure it'll be the same way. But there comes a time, like, we want to close the door. We want to go home. Like, you have to take more responsibility. And I just think those are the parents that somebody need to shake them and be like, look, take responsibility for your child. Yeah. But then, what is it that we can do to turn the light on? I guess one parent would say, if you wouldn't do this to the white man, why would you do this to us? How do we overcome that kind of, mindset? Well, it's okay. I think you do deal with the parents. Since nobody look like they want to say nothing, y'all like, you gonna answer? I think we have to deal with the parents.
I think this, I'm a nurturer, and I'm very blessed. There's not one of you that affect me. You know what I'm saying? You may think you're taking advantage of me, but I'm really good. I have no idea how good I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? So, really can't do nothing. So then, you're taking free rice from me. Like, you took an extra cup of noodles, you're upstairs in a space with a bunch of toys for an extra 2 hours. But I was in my music studio, money. You know what I mean? Like, if I just really look at how my life is set up, Marsha gets the butt of a lot. My personal life, but before I met Marsha, my personal life.
Like to say how you want to deal with this?
And why I say the butt of it, because I signed up like Baba Amin, Marcus Klein. Like when I ran into a situation this year, and Marcus Klein said, "That's your first time." He said, "Oh, Q, you're gonna have about 5 more parents call police on you. If that ain't what," I said, "Wow, I needed to hit that." You know what I mean? Like, this is the reality of the situation. When I spoke to my high school principal, he was like, "Yo, Q."
They shouldn't even feel comfortable doing that. You see what I'm saying?
It's the cop was like, you've been here for 5 years and nobody's ever got shot here.
You're doing good.
You're doing good. And then he said, you've been in business for 15 years and nobody's got shot in your business. They got corner stores. They got nightclubs. It don't matter what name you put on that. Every 6 months, somebody gonna get shot underneath that window. I'm not. You go to Eastern Parkway, was it East Empire Boulevard in Bethlehem? You go to church in Linden. You go to any one of these spots. Am I lying, sir? Am I lying? It don't matter. And they will keep putting the nightclub there. So it's not because they want to make money. But they're like, somebody's going to get shot. It's going to happen. So why I say to say, our community needs a level of nurturing. When I hear how some of the sisters and people complain about our brothers, and I think about how lacked or how little support we put into the community, and how much support I had, I'm a testimony of support. I'm a walking cushion of support. Y'all don't know what support I got, but I know how much support I got in my life, and I'm extremely grateful for it. So when a woman came to my house with 10 kids and was like, I just need some food for one night, and her baby father was sleeping in the car, and then 2 more kids came out of the car, and then all of a sudden she had a warrant, and all of a sudden she was like, all of a sudden the kids was hungry, and all of a sudden they had one, and all of a sudden the baby father was on a run too, and all of a sudden he was beating them, and all of a sudden I got the hell out, and all of a sudden it was in my mom's house in Kentucky. I don't know I didn't know how she got my mom's address. My little sister got it there, but my family's hood, so it's only so far that's gonna go. So I know it may seem like it is this, but it's only so far it goes. You know what I mean? But that's also something like my sisters, Michi, family that gets, and you call Q, look Q.
That's why she had that question.
Q,
Can I chime in on this? I have to go, but can I chime in on this and then ask the question from my chat? Just one to you. So I want to say this. When we're dealing with, and this is not specifically speaking to Zayek's parents, just in general in the community, when we're dealing with negligent parents and we have parents that are comfortable leaving their kids places past when they ought to be there, the thing that I would always say to myself in that position, and have said to myself in that position, is better me than someone else, right? I know me. I know children are going to be safe with me. So if the child's going to be neglected or the parent's going to drop the ball, I would rather that child be someplace safe than wherever else they're going to end up if it's not with me. And I think that, I'm not saying don't set boundaries and all that. I'm just saying that sometimes the biggest battle in cultivating and protecting children, and this is just keeping it real, is the parent. And at the end of the day, they're going to end up somewhere. That parent may tighten their ship if they can't utilize you, but most of these parents are crafty and will just find somebody else to use. So it's like, where do you want that child bounced? We know there are some rates of harm to children in our community that are far too high. And so ultimately, it's better that, to me, a child is in a safe place. And if we have the bandwidth to allow that, then I say that we allow it. And then the question from my chat was just that, what about socialization? And if you guys don't mind, because I really do have to go, I'll just give my 2 cents and then y'all can address it as well. But I think with public school, first of all, it's a false socialization. I really want to express that. There is no time in your real life other than in public school that you're in a classroom or any environment with 30 other people that are your exact same age. That's not even preparing you for the real world. In the real world, you're surrounded with people of varying ages and varying situations. That is false socialization. When we talk about homeschooling, I think it depends on the way you homeschool. If it's with a program that like Baba was describing, or at the Zayek's Institute, if it's in a program like that, there is socialization, right? Our children talk to each other. They have play dates afterward. We're connected visually. There are physical facilities. There are remote facilities. So that socialization definitely happens. And because in Zayek's particular, the classes are staggered and grouped together, there's a wider range of age groups and intellectual levels. And that actually is a healthier and more natural socialization. So it's funny to me when people say that about homeschool, and also homeschooling parents tend to take their children out into the real world more. Homeschool kids can hold a conversation with an entire adult and intellectually be with them a lot of the time because they're used to dealing with people of all ages, from the littlest to the biggest. And so your child is actually, in my opinion, having homeschooled for 10 years, better socialized in a homeschooling environment with an active parent than they are in a school environment, which is controlled, a false environment, because like I said, you're never put in a position to be around 30 people your exact age all day long in such a controlled environment. And so you will actually probably find your child will blossom. But again, remember, parents are pivotal in this. So that's my 2 cents. And I thank you so much, Brother Q, for having me on the panel. But I got to go.
I know you want to. Right, and that's what I wanted to say is that, see, Irene brought up something earlier. I think it's the same thing when she says she doesn't let her Asperger's child be comforted because life is not going to comfort you. My thing is, even if you let that child stay at the school all night, if there's more going on in the home, or this is just a parent that doesn't like to really be around their kids, so they take their time to go home, they go to sleep, they do whatever, then they come back. You never really know what it is. So what happens when that child leaves IS, right? Then what? Because the thing is I think that if we build that bridge to find out what are the issues here, maybe take the conditioning away from the parent and help them, because we've been often so conditioned to just drop our kids off at school. We go about our work every day. They used to be at the after school program, or they come home as latchkey, key kids. They come home alone and we see them later. So a part of that is the environment and the conditioning. There may be other things going on while they do that, but I think it's good to get to the core of it and not just let it go, because then you fix the problem. Does that child and that parent need to have help? Or does that parent also need to have help in learning to build a relationship and being the parent again around their kid to actually take the responsibility back on that says, I'm communicating with my child every day. I'm there. I'm majority of their presence, and instead of somebody else always raising my kid. This is my child. So maybe they need help in that. So I agree with what Irene was saying as far as it's better to be here than be out there. But if you keep that scenario, what happens if that's the case and this kid will be somewhere bad? When they leave IX and you never see them again, what is the rest of their life like? So while we have the parents, I think that we should take the time to figure out, because every child's situation is different. Why is it that it seems like you're taking advantage to a great magnitude? Is there something really going on? Are you working double shifts? There might be something, but are you really just like, well, my kid is here and I know Q ain't gonna say nothing, so I'm coming 10:30 and get my kid, and you ain't cooked your kid dinner because you just don't care to do any of these things. Now that is a problem.
When we're having this conversation, there's only one person we're talking about. So just so you know, the way this conversation goes, there's only one person we're talking about.
Right. I think, yeah. But even in let me say, even in homeschooling, even if it's not the situation of them being, at the actual spot, I think as parents, a lot of us, if you're going to homeschool your kids, you have to learn to be involved again. You've never really been involved in your child's whole schooling time. I mean, they might come home, you might help them with some homework, but to be honest, parents, when you send your kids off to public school, it's new because you're not really used to them. Even if you are home, let's say you don't have a problem with being at home and none of that's an issue, your kids can be homeschooled, you still got to get used to the fact that you might have to spend a big part of your day coming in the room, helping them with some work. They got to come and help you. You're the on-site teacher. And sometimes we're just not used to that. It's not that it's a bad thing, but I think that sometimes we have to help parents with that. Have that conversation and maybe a group that kind of is for the parents.
One of the things I could advise you to use is a thing called routines and procedures. You set routines, and then there's procedures to facilitate how you deal with those certain routines. So your routine could be the times you're going to review the work, or the way that what they have to do while they're on the computer, what they have to do in between classes. Then there is a procedure for that. Maybe they have to call you if you're not home. Maybe they might put you on video so they can see something, whatever works for you in terms of setting routines and procedures, because children respond to that. They're used to having structure.
Yeah.
So once you set the routines, if they know, okay, well, Friday, mom's coming home. All right, before we get pizza, I know I better have that portfolio and get ready for that review, because that's normally done, and she wants to start from the end to the beginning. That's her procedure. So that way I can see what I'm supposed to have done, and she don't get tired out in the beginning of it. So I know, that's her procedure, because maybe she figured out I would just show her the front half and never get to what I was really supposed to do. So she fought against that because we have a new routine, a procedure for it. So that's what I would advise you to do, is make sure you set clear routines and then procedures for that. And they're two different things. So you set your routines up, and then each one procedures that facilitate you and your child, so that you're working together in this endeavor to educate them, not like you're just imposing on them.
But what I'm saying, some parents, somebody touched on it earlier, they did inferiority, right? So some of them bully their children with marching and everybody. So they'd rather check out because they don't know. And I'm saying, how do you say, come learn, and we'll go walk with you, but don't just leave us when you come. We're trying to embrace you to walk with you, not to dump on the organization.
Well, as an educator, I'm a lifelong learner. And if you're going to be an educating parent, you got to realize you're going back to school.
Right.
Because your child is dynamic. They're changing all the time. And you're going to have to learn to adapt to that and apply and relearn with them as they learn. Because even some of the, like how they switch to base 10 in mathematics. And the modern parent, they're looking at what's base 10, and they don't understand that's a conceptual mathematics. That the Asians and the Africans are good at it, and they were outpacing us in math. And then that's why they brought that to the Common Core system. So now you may not want to do it, but the learning strategy has changed, and you got to reboost yourself. You got to update, because now you're in your child's education. You're a lifelong learner with them. There's new approaches to the English language that I have to adapt to as they come out, and change my old strategies, because the sentence diagramming days are out the water.
So then for the parents that they feel intimidated, you don't want to leave them behind so that they don't know what it's doing. I think maybe we should talk to the parents, not individually.
There's two sides, like each case. There's a business to Black empowerment. There's millions of Black parents who cannot get rid of their school system. And so they're going to have to dump their child in another place. That's the reality. So I'm aspiring to be able to build a system big enough so those kids can be dumped in my space. That's the reality of the school system. That's just the business of it. Parents have to go to work. So if you want parents who work and their kids, they need to know that you can leave their kid at here, 8:30, I can come back at 5 o'clock, and my kid has been taught. Because they have a high pace. I have people that have very high paced jobs. They're like, it is not that they don't want to take care of their child. Their child's benefit is the fact that they have this high paced job. So they're like, no, the way I take care of my child is I pay the best for them. That is how I take care of them. So like, you like Fendi, you like Gucci, and you're like, no, you buy because of the name brand. I buy because I want the best. And so my kid has the best. So they got leather this, they got the best chairs, they got the best furniture, they got the best math teacher, they got the best science teacher. That's how I take care of my child. I got receipts for every damn thing you want. There's nothing wrong with that. You see what I mean? That's a reality that more of the world is in than most isn't. And so for me, I understand that I come from, not just say my family is middle class. Like, they work. There was any benefits. They look down on benefits to my family. Like, you got SSI, you got Section 8, or if you got welfare, my whole family would talk that about you. So the whole view of it is, you one of them, you one of them itches that got the government baby. That's my aunt used to say that. This is my house. I don't got no pay for this. This is my mom. You know what I mean? That's how the aunts talk to my family. So that view of it is very much like, who gonna take care of your kid? And so when my parents went postal and they sued the government, they called my moms and pops crazy, like, you just want to live off the government. My whole family used to say my parents would live off the government. They're like, what kind of man want to sue the government? Go get a job. They tell my father, people get wronged all the time. Just go get another job. He says, no, I'm going to sue them and they're going to pay me. And 7 years later, but those decisions, at the time, people thought my parents was crazy. You know what I mean? So like, some of y'all parents are going to be looked at as crazy. Some parents are crazy. Some parents need to be introduced to crazy. You know, like, you know what I'm saying?
Can I apply for that position?
I'm just being like, some of us
Where
don't
did you
know
go in the Mitch's office really quickly before you go anywhere else?
Yeah, you know, and so, but we want, and Baba, go ahead, Baba. I know you want to add it. I know you got some truth to add it, Baba.
Well, you know, if you're going to be an independent educator, you know, you have to be a relationship builder. You know, and I take a lot of stock. I was taught that prevention is the best security. You know, and I take a lot of stock on my ability to kind of anticipate the type of personality that I'm dealing with just doing the intake process. You know what I'm saying? What's going to come with this? You know, if there's going to be baggage with this situation, what type of baggage? How do we deal with it? You know what I'm saying? We definitely have boundaries and parameters and consequences. You know, but one of the things that helps me is understanding that I suffer from the same conditioning too, in a lot of ways. And one of the issues that I had, I'm just gonna say the I statement, is that problem that when non-Black people can be doing something great, and I'll talk about them like they're individuals, but then that one Black person do something wrong, and I talk about them like it's the whole race. You know what I'm saying? Like 9 people be doing what they supposed to do. Like, man, Ola's good. Oh man, Miss Johnson is real responsible. Man, you see how Mrs. Smith, we just don't see Black daddies doing that. But then that one parent that do something, see, these parents is just messed up. We didn't even call them by this specific. See why these parents, what we gonna do about these parents? I had to step back and say, wait a minute, let me count the parents. And make sure I'm dealing with a group issue, or is this just this person? Or these two people? Well, if it's these two people.
Baba, hold on one second.
She was telling us good stuff.
What happened?
I mean, they can hear you on loud. We can't hear you. The mic died right as you said the last point you want to make.
Oh, okay. Y'all hear me now?
Thank you online for being patient with us. We're making it work.
Okay. Can y'all hear me now?
Oh, they turn the AC on. It's time to go. No.
You got on that suit jacket, you speak shit ready to go. I thought that's why you put everything
Trying to turn
on.
it down, right? That's how you get Black people out there. AC on that night. It's all
That's how they do. Turn it on. I'm like, okay, there. Before we go, though, a lot of people in my chat and people watching would like to know who the people are here on the panel.
Oh, yeah. That's
where they can follow everybody and stuff. So can we make sure we do that? They keep asking who's everybody, where they can find them.
Just, I want to do this again because I didn't get to get Brother Baba Baruch.
And shout out to my moderators. Yeah, they've been putting.
Also, Baba Amin wanted me to connect with another family in Atlanta.
Yeah, shout out to the Blind STEM Academy.
I know me too now. Baba, talk real quick.
What you about to say?
I might check 1, 2.
What?
So, Boyce Watkins, he wanted to connect Black schools together.
If you invite Dr. Watkins to something, it's gonna be a problem. I'm gonna fight him when we get here. You see the series on my face? Matter of fact, invite him, brother, to the next one. Give him the big chair in the front.
Brown side over
Please.
here. Apartment Brown side over here. 2 years ago, we talked about trying to connect the Black schools together.
You were talking to Dr. Watkins.
Baba, remember, he wanted to bring all the schools together.
Right.
He wanted to bring he was like, no, I'm going to do the schools out and they kind of tell apart. So to me, this is the first time, like, Baba, I really want to get Marcus Klein, Baba Baruch, and Baba Amin together. I'm a baby to them. I really want to talk.
Are you saying you want to bring Dr. Watkins on?
No. He was supposed to do that. It was Omar, and he jumped on the deck and was like, I'm going to get everybody $5,000. I'm going to get $5,000 a month on one of the Black schools. He gave Marcus Klein $5 and disappeared.
And he ain't gonna do that every month. That man can't even pay his employees. Y'all gonna stop it. You can't even pay him $250 a month.
We need to start some
Y'all gonna stop it.
some type of academic decathlon amongst the schools. Some friendly competition.
Not
Get
come
them
from his
warmed
brain.
up
It's behind money and
knowing the
marketing.
different levels of learners that they're in competition with across the nation.
Baba, told again?
Like a homeschooling co-op.
Mic check 1, 2.
Yes, we have one in Colorado.
Like academic decathlon and stuff like that, where we have this team, Zion.
Mic check 1, 2.
It'd be fun. Yeah.
We had a homeschool co-op, yeah. And if there's enough people in the area, they should get together. We got together like every Friday. It helps the kids socialize. We did field trips. They didn't learn that day. And I won't say they didn't learn, but they learned more how to cooperate with each other, how to work together. It was kids of all different ages. And so we brought them together, not to really make them work, but for them to be together. And if there were kids who needed help with work, we helped them too. So that is the thing. It was enough of us. It was like 4 families. And so we got together and we had our homeschool co-op and we met every Friday. So yeah, that is also a solution to socializing and getting your kids to interact with other kids. And it helps. So, and it's a support group. Families learn to help each other.
The socializing thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be like resources to bounce ideas off of one another and to to be.
And then the stars can know each other. Oh, yeah, I knew that guy from SciEx that was real good in STEM. Oh, that's that girl from that school over there that's real good in literature and wrote a novel. They'll know of each other. The way these athletes know about each other, because they were on these same farm little teams and whatnot when they were in middle school and this and that. They were on the private teams, the expansion leagues, and those little leagues they got.
We got you, Mama.
And y'all keep saying in the chat that Kwame shout me out. Y'all go over there and tell Kwame, since he's interviewing everybody on that big platform, tell him to interview Q Butter and Zayek's Institute, because he is a solution. Right? Y'all go tell Kwame that for me.
I say.
And y'all tell Kwame to bring this brother on so he can get some more notoriety for the solution he brings, right? Y'all do that for me.
I say.
You did, Baba, my man.
Yes.
We can't hear you now. You good now.
Okay, cool. So yeah, again, relationship building, and then checking ourselves, not allowing the frustration of dealing with one particular parent to cloud your spirit, to bring up that black inferiority, that frustration that you bring into the situation about black people, some of the negative assumptions that you bring into the situation about your own people, that could be exacerbated when you're dealing with those issues. It's case by case. For the most part, if you approach it from a empowering standpoint, you build a relationship with the parent, then that communication got to be established there where the accountability won't sting as much. This is a journey for parents just like it is for children, especially when you're bringing them from the public school setting into an African-centered school setting that I can speak on, even the virtual setting. You know what I'm saying? It's a journey for them too. A lot of times, when your baby come home talking about Marcus Garvey, the parent may have never heard of Marcus Garvey before, or ancient Africa. They haven't learned it. You know what I'm saying? And I've had parents, I've never really met a black person who didn't enjoy learning our history. You know what I'm saying? Especially when it's presented in an empowering type way. So it's also in your presentation, in your culture. You just can't let that spirit get on you, because once that spirit get on you, it's contagious and it begins to spread. And so I understand where Q's coming from. It's like we're not being taken advantage of, but we have to maintain a positive culture in our school, and we can't let the negativity dominate the energy inside the classroom, right? So it's cool to have I'll stick other parents on you. And you sure don't want to talk to my wife, but that's the collections department, that's the accountability department. So if Antonio calls you, all my parents who I have issues with, they be trying to call my phone. I call them back. When they call, I don't call them back. They're going to call back from Antonio. And when Antonio call them back, it's a whole different thing, because her heart is bleeding at home. So it's good to have a team there. But for the most part, if you maintain the culture, you maintain a positive atmosphere, these parents are going to be on that walk, and you'll watch them grow too.
Mm-hmm. Then I want to ask a question myself. I know I'm on the panel then of this brother and just everybody else. So what he's saying and what we've heard, I mean, what do y'all think about the fact that he said as the kids are growing, the parents are growing, this is all a new environment. Like, we're quick to we talk about the conditioning. So we'll have those parent-teacher conferences like Zayek's, right, about your kids and how the kids are doing. What about having meetings with the parents? Like, how are you doing with your homeschooling? Absolutely. What's going on with you? Is there any advice you want?
Our parents' businesses.
What's going on with you? You know, from
our parents have a business.
That's something that we should incorporate.
Yeah. I have conversations with my parents where I'm encouraging them. What's about them?
For the ones that, so you come
on Sundays and then.
Girl, you be
mine don't pick up, but the ones that do, they have conversations.
Okay.
How they're doing. How they're doing with their kids.
But what about in a group setting? So it's not all that pressure's not on you. What about it's like you have the parent-teacher conference? Why not some type of a Zoom meet instead so many times to do it that way?
Parent-teacher. And it was good for them. Some would attend, some will. Here's the thing. It will be the same parents that were invested in their children's education about anything else that is their issue. This is not parent teacher time. What do we know with you? That's how we got Miss Secure to be the librarian.
So I get you saying the ones that actually probably need it don't show up. The ones that are there are really doing what they need. That are called always is
They're frustrated because they want everything, right?
Right.
These are the kids that we have to start kicking out of the classes and everything. But you want everything from us, but you're not giving anything back. And then I was like, how do we hold their feet to the fire? Because you know, the whole community, those are the communities that's holding people up, right?
Right.
Y'all are gonna hold people up, right? And then there'll be those of us that we're gonna take everything you give us, and just take from the culture and the community. And it's like, at what point do we say that's not fair to the rest of those that?
What do y'all think about? I'm saying, like, you go into new things, you find new stages. They fill out paperwork in the beginning. What about it being mandatory? That once a month. And the reason why I say that is all day long we'll go into white people's establishments and we'll do a mandatory meeting to keep our job. We'll do mandatory stuff to do our degree. So all I'm saying, I'm saying as you move forward, there are new parents that come in. If you begin to structure things a certain way, why we can't mandatory just one meeting a month for all parents? Like if you can't make that. So I'm just asking what y'all think about that. Like it's something you have to do for your kids to be in this school.
Well, it's a process. And that's just literally the part about it that that's something that, as an educator, process means patience.
Yeah, but if you never set down nothing to work towards, how do you get there?
But you also have positive reinforcement too.
You're taking all the excuses away for you to say, oh, I don't know this, or I'm having so much trouble, because we're here for you now.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, there's growth and development. So the stage you got brought in, when you introduced earlier, you came as a volunteer teacher this year. This is our second full-time year. I went from knowing Miss Irene, Mr. Robbins, Sister Farasha, meeting you with me to you on tour, meeting Cynthia, and bringing all these people into my house. You see? So I'm a Leo. So I take on family. That's what I do. And so your issue is my issue. We can't. My family's my family. Now, once you break that protocol, like I said, I'm good. You're seeing it through the little box on the internet. Like, in the space, it doesn't look like that. You know, and the space is dedicated, it's overlapping goals. Like, when Sanjada and I started it 22 years ago, we had 100 different titles of different things we wanted to do. We wanted to make Frankfurter stands and sell Frankfurters for food for poor people. We wanted to get a new stand to sell candy so we can have money to fund after school program. No. What I'm saying is, I know, but in order to make that mandatory, your assessment of a parent's mental health is your assumption. What I'm telling you is, some of these parents have issues or challenges that they do not open up to you. They only open up to me. And I have to take them on because I nurture them. So when you're telling me you just got evicted, and that your wife and you just got into a fight, and now you're in Mr. Michi's class and you're wondering why the camera's off, they're not going to tell you that. They're going to tell me that. These people, our family's getting open to communicating with people, and I've created a barrier where the communication is so open to some of us, where they're going to be able to, some people have never even expressed that their child was molested. I have parents who have children that were sheltered, they got molested, and nobody's been around their kids since me. And I'm like, wow, I don't feel comfortable being in it. And our community has went through so much where we have to give a little space where we can nurture and then understand.
And that's all we're saying. Let's nurture and come together.
And then as it develops,
let's talk about it.
We can understand.
And you still, I know you don't like it sometimes when you because you still got a lot on your plate. But let's say maybe Botanica, right? Because they're in it as well. But that you said, you know all the households. I know you know this stuff, right? But and yes, you nurture them where a point where it has to start coming in to take some of the pressure off of you. And what I'm saying is redistribute it.
But let me tell you where the pressure applies.
I see something.
Now, before you look at a pipe, let the pipe show you where the hole is.
You don't want to know.
Then now let me tell you where the pressure is. Obviously, there's no pressure there. When you have a hole in a tire, the bubbles come out of the hole. That's where the pressure has a leak. There's no leaks to me there. The leaks that I have, I will tell you it. You know, but that's not something I signed up for that. You know what I mean? Like, that's not, it may seem like for you, because that's what I'm saying with the position here, for me, having phone calls at 2 in the morning for parents, that doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Y'all are still streaming on my channel too. I just want to say the kids call me and the parents call me whenever they want, and I'm good with it. We are a family, period. We're a family at the end of the day, period. And everybody doesn't have to extend themselves like that, but we're not going to fully shut that down because many of us will extend ourselves like that. Anyway, I got to go again.
Let me say, I don't know if we're confused and talking about the same thing, because my thing is, how far do y'all see Zions going? Do you want to see 1,000 students? As you grow, you have to have some type of structure because it begins to get so big. I'm just simply talking about something where we come together with the parents, because there's a lot of them are learning how to homeschool. I ain't talking about their private problems. Like, please keep calling you guys at 2 in the morning if y'all want to do that. I'm talking about the issue of, like, how are you managing at home? Like, are you being able to help? This is new to you too. So how is this working for you with your schedule? Is there anything we can assist you with or try and help you, get used to this? I'm kind of helping with teaching my kid. Maybe you're not used to this. And there's just some, in that newness, it becomes, for parents too, it might not be the easiest thing. So that's all I'm talking about, in having that in the structured way. Because if you have 1,000 parents, you're going to be mad if 10 of them call you at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's not possible is what I'm saying.
I think what Michi's saying and what Q is saying go hand in hand. I think there's a balance. Yeah.
Right. It's helping the parents.
So that's not just coming out of their own personal pocket, right? So if they're having a problem, right? So that you're not the only one taking it at 2 a.m. because we have already created a place for them to feel vulnerable. And such, and sometimes I push them in that place and say, we got you. It's not just the leadership that got you. It's a whole community that has you.
It develops over time. That's why I said earlier it's a process. But us even having conversations over to say that we're taking on social stuff, I'm not just ecstatic about being able to have this opportunity to take on these challenges. That's the type of person I am. I love this. Next year we're gonna have a bunch of children, unfortunately, who were raped, people that come from homes that were like abandoned, parents who are drug addicts, parents who are rich and don't care, parents who are rich and do care. They have a whole leap of stuff going on. So I just look forward to it. And at the end of the day, it's like, this is part of the sustainability aspect. Like when I'm in by my men and Marcus Klein, and I see their fortitude. You know what I mean? Where they're just like, my school, I lost this location, but I got new location. I got new students, I got this student. A parent didn't pay this month, they didn't pay this month. At the end of the day, like Marcus Klein told me, the show ain't gonna stop. Not now. You know what I mean? And so it's different in the school system because those things is signed up for. Like, you'll never hear me complain about parents. Like, you'll never hear me complain about, these damn students drive me crazy. Like, I can't stand when teachers say that. I'm like, bro, you're a school teacher. That's like being a mechanic and hating grease. Like, I just, like, how do you not like grease? It's hard.
Brother Q, have you talked about how in Brother Q's vision, and I don't know how many people know this, his vision is of a full movement that is all encompassing. It's not just an educational strategy. So I think too, we have to know that when he's thinking about his vision for Zions, which is not just the Institute. It incorporates financial literacy, family planning, a whole plethora of things that are communal. And I think we have to understand that too, because I think sometimes we're thinking the Institute, and he's thinking the vision for Zions, the movement itself.
I'm just seeing I'm seeing your vision. I think you see yourself where you are. I guess I'm saying down the road, again, 1,000 kids in your school, you're going to have to do things different just for it to work in the way you want. Not bad or take away from your vision. That's the only thing I guess I'm trying to say. Is how we build this, because as it grows,
let me say this. The new contract is mandatory volunteering. A new contract is 17 pages long now. We updated a whole bunch of new stuff. So just so you know, you cannot.
Just tell me what it say now, because I'm not reading all of that.
I vote we drag Michi into some of these 5-hour crunch sessions we.
You have to describe how you discipline your child.
As a parent, I got to do it.
All of those new things.
Parents don't talk about parents. I want to do the right.
We were going this year. No, that's not gonna be. No, I'm gonna have a whole new like.
But this what I'm saying, right? So like when we were talking about, okay, so social services, right? So let's say we create a giving fund, right? Or a social fund. So that's not coming out of your pocket, right? But in different funds, like I may donate 50, another thing, but that we know it's available. This is our social service program, and we have suggested donations. So that is not always on you. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying?
You know I'm a Leo.
You know I'm a Gemini.
So you definitely have to.
So I'm a Pisces, and both of y'all about to have this conversation all night, and we got 16 minutes left. Is there another question in the house? Huh? No, we have this conversation with you all the time. You know what? We always just goes the same way. I don't know why you asked this question. You knew what he was going to say. You know you've had this conversation with Q before, but we all have. And he keeps saying the same thing to us.
How many kids to Atlanta? How many people to Atlanta do you take on?
He came with 40 kids. And it ain't parents for all the kids. What's going on?
And the kids and the parents all that. Look at Stella, she knocked out. So that being said, Baba, please give us the words. You're the elders. I appreciate you so much. Give us some words to close us out and make sure they know where to find you at.
I say, well, you can definitely check out the Uhuru Academy at uhuruacademy.com. You can also check out UASC International at uhuruacademysc.org. We are in the process of renovating our farm on our South Carolina campus, so we have a fundraiser going for that. We're building a solar power greenhouse as well as a science lab on our land. And so definitely something to support. You can catch me on Instagram at Baba Amin. I just want to close out congratulating Q and congratulating the whole team, the whole family at the Zydex Institute. I remember when you launched it, man, and really started pushing it and to watch your growth, to watch your stick-to-itiveness, the things that you've done for us at the Uhuru Academy as well. You know, I ain't forgot about the IXL memberships, man. Appreciate that, you know what I'm saying? Just watching you, you know, your passion for it, I admire it. I'm proud of it. I'm proud to call you a comrade in this struggle to build, no, not this struggle, this victory, this journey, this beautiful journey that we're on, building educational institutions for our children, our families, our adults. That's what it's all about, y'all. At the end of the day, nothing good comes easy. This ain't easy work, but it's beautiful work, you know. And the successes make all of the challenges worth it, right? And we don't have a choice anyway. If we gonna survive, if we gonna make it, if we're gonna change history and not repeat history over again, we have to take control of the narrative. And that's what this is all about. So congratulations to all your graduates this year. Congratulations on y'all having another great, successful school year. And I'm looking forward to watching and witnessing and being a part of your next school year as well, and for years to come. Let's go get those 1,000 students.
Hey, like with a black attendant to, huh? Hey.
I gotta say something else.
So yeah, with that being said, get your kids out that white man school system.
Because you got several options, right? I asked brother here got a school.
And I know since China don't work at your school. He works at one school in New Jersey. So unless you in East Orange, I know you ain't got some challenge.
Hey,
With that being said, take the time to invest into your child's education. Do whatever you can. They are the future. You are the future. It's connected together. Your investment, future, lack of investment, no future, more investment, more future. You know what I mean? You get the drift. So with that being said, like, subscribe, share. Oh, Blue Pill. Yes, Blue is in the building. Half of the legendary twin pillars themselves. And I've been wanting to get these two wings though. All this. Yeah, you see that? Yeah. They got to do on their own show. Blue, give us some words of wisdom.
Once again, you know, education is the foundation of where we're going to take our nation, right? So institutions such as this are some of the most important emerging institutions in our community. We have to, even if you are not homeschooling your own children, you know, it doesn't mean that you can't volunteer and pour into these institutions. We have to reinstitute the whole aspect of it being a village. You feel me? Your child is my child, so we can raise these children together, we can technically, literally be hands-on. And with this virtual world, you know, you can do it from wherever you're at. This whole concept of this quote-unquote new normal means that you've been given permission to do things new, right? How are we going to institute that, once again, to obtain power for ourselves and our children, our future? Prioritize the future, enroll in these programs, you know what I'm saying? Volunteer, do whatever you have to do to make yourself, you know, part of these children's lives, all right? With that, you can find us at Blue Pillar 44, Know the Ledge Media on YouTube. Check out Black Magic 363. We got a lot of content over there. All right, with that, thank you.
I want to say before we leave out, to all my people in my chat, if you're not on Michi X's channel, you know, might not see it, but if my moderators could please, for everybody that's in the house, put again the link to Zyx so that you guys can enroll your children. If you don't have a child, do you have nieces, nephews, like pass this information on to a friend, you know, anybody that has children. Also, if my moderators will again, please put in the GoFundMe link for the school, because there is plenty that is needed, right? And we can't do this without the help of the people who need this for our babies. So what I would tell you is to please support Zyx in every way that you can. And other than that, I just want to thank you for having me here and everything that he is doing and all of the work. And I'm just really honored to finally, after 5 years, like, hey, what's going on? We finally got to work together. It's working. The school is growing. And I just want y'all to share this information. Share this video. I know it's long. Everybody's not going to be interested, but those that are, they need this information. We talk a lot about the problems, but today what you're watching is the solution. And I always find it interesting how low the numbers are when we talk about the solutions. But you tell me you don't like the drama. But if this video was entitled, "Let Me Tell You Something, Punk," y'all would have been in here in the thousands today. So I'm just saying, we all be in this movement, and y'all cheer us on for the drama. Support the solution.
It shows how we prioritize our future and our children. At the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. We brought these children into the world. Do you care about these babies? Do you care about our future? You know what I mean? So the reflection of that would definitely translate into how hands-on we are, how participant we are in these forums, you know what I'm saying, the input and everything. We just see a continuous down spiral of disaster when it comes to how we handle our own business, even in the midst of adversity. You know what I'm saying? It's just supposed to be able to teach us how to do something different. So this is something different. This is what we've been asking for. It's here, support it, get involved. You know what I'm saying? Check it out. Do whatever is necessary that you need to do to wrap your mind around it. Like if it was a rumor, you would know the ins and out of it, upside down, the backstory and everything. You feel me? So make sure that you are doing everything that you know that you need to do to make sure that your children have the best possible opportunity and chance that they need to have headed towards the future. You feel me? And I want to thank this man, his wife, and his family. Like I said, I knew it when it was only a concept, and now it's materialized, and it's going to be a global movement. You feel me? It's going to be a global movement. So consider yourself a part of history. Thank you for your time, your attention, your focus, and your participation.
All right. Black power in this.
They tired. Ain't no black power right now. The kids tired. They looking for a bed.
Anything is open. Oh,
Long one.
And it's over.
Yo, so
Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm a little ashamed that, you know, when it was time, you know, to talk about the truth of high value men or the lack thereof, we showed up so deeply, but, you know, we were not 300 deep for this conversation. But this was a much needed conversation. I hope you guys took something from it. Please make sure to donate to the Zykes Institute. Enroll your children. Baba Amin, he has an institute as well. Try to find a Black, an all-Black institute, a Black-focused institute, an Afro-centered institute that vibes with what you want for your child, and consider a new way to educate, okay? I'll talk to you guys later.